A Wednesday edition of the Sports Bash. It starts right now. I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Henning is producing today's show. You out there, Wednesday edition. Usually these Wednesdays are kind of that midweek hump day, get you through. But we have Eagles football tomorrow night. We've also got plenty of other things to dive into. Today we're jam-packed. More so than a usual Wednesday because of the Eagles and the Bucs tomorrow night. Got news there. Ben Simmons' latest coming up because there is new news on the Ben Simmons front. We'll get you that as well. Will he play Friday night? I have the latest. Jake Fisher, who covers the NBA, Bleacher Report, has a very detailed explanation of how everything kind of happened, went down behind closed doors. He'll join me today at 3:40. Mike McGarry will give his opinions at 2:40. Jason Fitz on everything that's going on, college, NFL, Raiders, Eagles, Bucks. You mention it. He'll bring it up. Jason Fitz, 3 o'clock. Mosher has football at 4, the big breakdown on the game. Fine 5, ugly 5. My 5 best, 5 worst teams in the NFL. The voice of Thursday Night Football on 97.3 ESPN's Westwood One Radio. Ian Eagle will join me tonight at 5 o'clock right here on the Sports Bash on our weekly Cup of Joe with Joe Valerio, who is maybe one of the best NFL storytellers I've ever had on the show. He'll join us tonight at 5:25 here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Don't forget, download the free mobile app. You can get that in the Apple Store or Google Play. All right, so we could start in a variety of spots here, but I want to start with an article that I wrote at 973ESPN.com last night, to which I posted, and the reaction has been pretty predictable, but very head-scratching. Like, do people have any ability to think outside of the box? And this is even like thinking outside of the box. Like, so the story essentially, the Eagles are 2-3. They play Tampa, right? They're in the mix for the wild card. We talked about that yesterday. Whether you want to hear this or not, it's not my job to tell you the Eagles suck and they're not going to be in the playoffs. Well, yes, it is somewhat that's not my opinion. My opinion is they are in the mix. As a fan, you might say they suck, they have no shot. That's not accurate. They are 2-3. They are firmly in the wild card race right now. It's early, but after 5 weeks, they're not bad enough to be out of the race. You know, they're not Jacksonville. They're not Detroit. And they're not good enough to feel good about their standing. They're in the middle. So while winning or losing on Thursday night's not going to change the Eagles' standing, they could make a move that in their mind helps them improve their chances for one of the 3 wild card spots. I would say they're not getting the first wild card spot. That's going to go to either Arizona or LA. But number 2 and number 3 is wide open right now. Jeremy Fowler over at ESPN, he has an article up that basically said to keep an eye on the Eagles and Indianapolis running back Marlon Mack. Now, when I suggested that the Eagles might have their eye on a running back, you could only predict the comments that would follow. Right? Like, do we even need to go down the list of comments that we got based on the fact that the picture is of a running back? Like, I don't even know that people read the article. They just saw a running back in the picture, and basically all hell broke loose. You know, reading things is a very, very good way to learn more about what is said in the headline. And the headline just simply says, one name Eagles could keep an eye on as trade deadline nears. And the comments that follow, Paul, a running back? Seriously, why not trade for relief pitchers? We wouldn't use them. All right, Paul. Kevin, oh my God, I didn't even see this one. Kevin says, everyone judges the headline. Yes, the article makes a good point. Read, people. Kevin, I'm giving you a like. Terry, no point in trading for a running back. We never run the ball. Our quarterback has 42 more yards than our running backs. Jim, now this article is just plain stupid. Trade for a running back? We literally don't run the ball. if you read the article, it made a case for why this makes some sense. Now, if you say, I read the article, you made a point, I don't agree with your point, that's a different story. Mac played for Eagles coach Nick Sirianni, and he was impressive. He ran for 1,091 yards and had 8 touchdowns when Nick Sirianni was the Colts offensive coordinator. Now, the Colts and Mac have mutually agreed that they are going to search for a trade. They deactivated him in week number 3. Now, Fowler explains that Hurts and Sanders has not been used. Now, I have often wondered this week and leading up to this week, do the Eagles trust Miles Sanders? Do they not trust this guy? Adding Mac would give Sirianni a back that he knows well, and maybe if he got a running back that he trusted more, he would use him more. What a thought. Instead of shooting the idea down completely, doesn't that make more sense? I know everybody out there, right? Everybody out there thinks that Miles Sanders is Saquon Barkley. He's not. Evidently, the Eagles just don't like Miles Sanders' ability. They might be flat out wrong, but this is now Doug Peterson, and it is now Nick Sirianni. Both of these coaches, for whatever reason, have decided that whatever it is, Miles Sanders just isn't their cup of tea. So if I was to tell you they could get a running back in here that Nick Sirianni trusts more and that would cause them to run the football more, wouldn't you be down with that? Wouldn't you be more excited about the Eagles' running game if they ran the ball? And would they run the ball more if Nick Sirianni got a guy that he likes? Instead of just blindly saying, why would you get a running back? They don't run the ball at all. Did you ever critically think a little bit to say, why don't they run the ball more? Why don't they run the ball more? And maybe, just maybe, they don't run the ball more because they don't trust the guy that they currently have. Hey, for one, I would like to see them run the ball more. And I am willing to say, if they got Marlon Mack here, maybe Nick Sirianni would trust him more and they would run the damn ball more. So guess what? I'm willing to take a chance to bring Mack here, because if Sirianni goes to Roseman and says, look, man, I just don't trust him. Like, I'd like to run the ball some more, but I just don't trust him all that much. Wouldn't that be the precursor to then Howie Roseman making a call and saying, hey, we'd like to get Marlon Mack. What do you need? Hey, it's a late round pick. Okay, my coach has suggested that it would help his offense out. I'm going to go ahead and do that for him. I mean, the way I look at it is, if they would be interested in Marlon Mack, that would say that came from somewhere. That didn't just come out of the clear blue sky of, hey, let's make a trade for Marlon Mack. We already have a guy. No, that would tell me that Nick Sirianni had a conversation and said, look, I know the guy Mack. He can run my offense. I've worked with Mack before. He can run my offense. And we do need to run the ball more, right? We do need to run the ball more. So if you can get him, do me a favor. Go on out that way and go do it. So Indianapolis right now, they have sat Mack. I think he was activated last week. But in week 3, he was deactivated. He then asked for a trade. Both sides basically said, yeah, we're going to try to work out a trade. Last week, he was active, but I don't think he did much of anything last week. He might have had like 40 yards. Actually, I thought he played a little bit more last week than he has all season long. Right, Monday night, he actually had a decent game. He had 5 carries for 47 yards. That's almost 10 yards a carry. They have Jonathan Taylor out there. That's their guy. So Mack has kind of been phased out of the offense. They've got Hines. So Marlon Mack essentially has no role. I mean, if I could just continue to read the comments that have come in on this story, it is just mind-boggling how nobody can think for themselves. This should be like a education on figuring out how to have your own thoughts. Critical thinking in this world has been flushed down the toilet. In the immortal words of Jalen Hurts, right? When you take a deuce, you don't take a look at it. Yeah, maybe you should take a look at it. You need to examine it a little more. Examine why bringing a running back in here actually does make sense. Don't flush the deuce right down the toilet. Examine it a little more. The comments are preposterous. Frank, we don't need him. We don't run the ball. We already have 3 good running backs. Why would he want to come here anyway? Hey, Frank, I got news for you. The Eagles don't think they have 3 good running backs. If they thought they had 3 good running backs, don't you think they'd use them more? So if they're interested in a running back, what does that tell you? It tells you the guys they have, they don't think are good enough, Frank. Shane, we have the running backs we need. We need to hand them the effing ball. Hey, Shane, maybe they don't agree with you. Did you ever think of that, Shane? Did you think of that, Shane? That the Eagles, maybe they don't think they have the running backs they need. Maybe the coach has said, hey, my running back ran out of flipping bounds twice in the last 2 minutes of the game. I can't trust him. Now, look, I would like to see them use Miles Sanders more. I'm not saying that I 100% agree with them, but my point is, if you want them to run the ball more, maybe they need to get a back that they trust, not a back that Frank trusts or Shane trusts or Willie trusts or Dennis trusts. Because Frank, Dennis, Shane, and Willie, there's a reason they don't run the ball with Miles Sanders. So maybe when that says they're interested in a running back, instead of saying we don't need him, maybe you should say, you know what, I'm kind of intrigued. What would they do with this running back? Right? Willie, he must be one hell of a blocker while Hurts is in the shotgun. That was his contribution to that. Orlando, for what? We don't run the ball, LOL. It is an overwhelming amount of people that just see something and have it stuck in their minds that the Eagles just choose not to run. And maybe they do. Maybe they do choose not to run. Maybe that is just 1,000% his philosophy, that he just chooses not to run. But, you know, there are other avenues. There are multiple directions you can take to get to one spot. You know, some guy might take a direct route. Some people like the scenic route. And in this case, maybe the scenic route is the better way to get there. Maybe Nick Sirianni wants to run the ball more. Maybe he just doesn't feel he has the right guy to do it. Fowler writes over at ESPN.com, the Eagles' Sirianni was Indy's offensive coordinator when Marlon Mack had a 1,000-yard season in 2019. So how did he gain 1,000 yards if they don't run the ball? Oh, does that get in the way of your narrative? What a bummer. Eagles' final injury report is out, by the way. Lane Johnson is out. He will not play in the game tomorrow night. He has a personal matter. The rest of the team, Derek Barnett, Jason Kelsey, Landon Dickerson, and Jordan Mailata are all full participants, and they will be playing in the game tomorrow night. So the only player not there is Lane Johnson. Now, how will the offensive line look? I would imagine it's going to look the same as it did the other night. I think they'll probably go with Mailata at right tackle, Driscoll at right guard, Kelsey at center, Dickerson at left, Mailata at left tackle. Dillard. Now, if you notice in the game the other day, they did take Dickerson out. He was struggling. Apparently, he was banged up with this ankle problem, and they put Herbig in the game at left guard. So keep an eye on that. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. 0973. Mike, I agree with you about Sirianni possibly trusting Mac more than Sanders, but did Sirianni trust Sanders coming into the season? Why not address this prior to the season? Here's the problem. How would he trust Sanders coming into the season? He never coached him before. Like, he may have said, I'm excited to get this guy, went halfway through training camp and said, you know what, I don't know if I trust this guy. Keep in mind, they don't play in the preseason. Now, you can make that could be one reason why you knock them not playing in the preseason, but how much in-game action did Nick Sirianni see from Sanders? I think it's clear that Doug Peterson didn't use Sanders as much as you wanted to use him either. So don't just blame Nick Sirianni here. And what do we hear? Jeffrey Lurie doesn't like them to run the ball. Well, this is to the extreme. 3 times in a game? Come on. This is the NFL, dude. Look, I get it. It's a passing league. But 90-10? Yeah, those things are that balance is a little off the mark. So maybe Sirianni did he trust him coming into the season? Who knows? I mean, how do you trust somebody you don't know? And then you didn't play him in the preseason. So all you're going off of is how he looked in practice. Well, maybe in practice they were like, he drops the ball. He fumbles a little bit. They had to have known, why isn't Doug Peterson using this kid? What is it about this kid that Doug Peterson didn't use him all that much? Let's watch the tape. Oh, okay, I see this. I see that. I see this. I see that. I'm not saying Sirianni definitively doesn't trust him. Actions speak louder than words, though, and his actions are saying he don't trust this guy. That's what the actions say. The actions suggest the Eagles, Nick Sirianni, they don't trust him. 609-403-0973. Mike, when's the last time the Eagles had a 1,000-yard rusher? We just can't seem to get a consistent back since I don't know McCoy. I would imagine McCoy was the last 1,000-yard rusher. I'm going to go 2016, 2015. I would imagine McCoy had 1,000 yards that year. So McCoy is definitely the last 1,000-yard rusher. Nobody else has had 1,000-yard. Mike, Miles Sanders has not been given enough opportunity to say he can't be the guy. Well, again, opportunity comes from trust. You don't get the opportunity if you're not trusted. You don't just get handed an opportunity. You have to be trusted to get that opportunity in the NFL. They don't just say, hey, man, here you go. He has had opportunities, by the way. That is incorrect. Miles Sanders has had opportunities. He has had fumble problems. So when he fumbled the football, he did not get those opportunities extended. The opportunities weren't extended because of a propensity to not to fumble the football. And quite frankly, he had a problem with the drops last year. Did he not? Did we not see him have problems dropping the football out of the backfield? I think we all saw that. And we were surprised by it because his rookie season in 2019, he caught the ball pretty well. His rookie season, 2019, he had 50 catches on 63 targets, 10 yards a catch, 3 touchdowns out of the backfield. Last year, he had 28 catches. But the big number is this, 6 fumbles. He has 6 fumbles in his career. 6. 4 last year in 12 games. He has a lot of drop passes, and he has fumbles. So I have to disagree with that text message that he has not been given enough of an opportunity. He has been given an opportunity. He's fumbled. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. That's the text board. You can get involved. Everybody get in. We'll react to your conversation, your comments. 609-403-0973. Yeah, McCoy had 1,319 yards in 2014. The most yards since then was Sanders last year with 867. Now, Sanders last year only played 12 games, and he had 867 yards. He had 5 yards a carry, 6 touchdowns. The problem was he had 4 fumbles last year. So I think that kind of cut into the ability for him to be a more every down type of back. But this is the conversation. I like Sanders. I'd give Sanders a bigger chance. I'd give him more of an opportunity. But it's something's holding him back in the coach's mind. So if I told you, hey, they're interested in Marlon Mack, and that might make them run the ball more, why would anybody be against that? Bewildering to me. Sports Bash brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Hey, head to our website, 973ESPN.com right now. Check out what 6 ABC anchor Jim Gardner had to say about Ben Simmons. It's pretty funny, but I think the comments to Gardner's tweet were actually even funnier. Get it now at 973ESPN.com. Coming up, Mike McGarry at 4:40 today here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. 226 Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. I got my Fine Five, Ugly Five coming up later on in the show. 5 best, 5 worst teams. Also, we'll talk to Jake Fisher on the Ben Simmons situation at 3:40 today from Bleacher Report. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. It is the Sports Bash. More text messages coming in. And, of course, if you're watching the show live on the video stream, we see you over there. If you have the free mobile app, you can message us over there. Big D checks in. I've been saying it the whole time. We should bring up Howard when we don't even use Sanders. No need for a running back. We have 3 good ones. Why should we bring up Howard? This isn't talking about bringing up Howard. This is talking about bringing somebody else in here. This is talking about bringing a guy that Nick Sirianni knows. Nick Sirianni possibly trusts. He doesn't know Howard. He doesn't know. Now, I think he likes Gainwell. I just don't think he thinks Gainwell is ready yet to be. Gainwell's not really a lead back. 8-Ball checks in, says you can say the same thing with Ertz and Goddard. They haven't gotten the ball much. I don't think it's a trust issue. I think the playbook doesn't fit this team. I brought this up the other day to Andrew, and I'll bring it up today with Moshe and get his opinion on it. I think the fact that they have Ertz and Goddard here actually hurts the offense more than it helps the offense. If only one of them were a part of the offense, I think the offense would run smoother. Because if you put the 2 guys together, they're actually having a pretty solid season. The problem is he has to try to figure out a way to get both these guys involved in the offense, and I think that kind of clunkifies. Is that a word? Clunkifies. That'll be the word for today. Clunkifies. Clutters? No, I like clunkifies better. Clutters is a real word. Clunkifies, I'm making up and using myself. They have 29 receptions between the 2 guys. If you put Goddard and Ertz together, they have 29 catches for 376 yards and 3 touchdowns. It's pretty good. 376 at the tight end position, 29 for 376. So if you put the 2 tight ends together, they're having a pretty good year. The problem is he's got to put them both out on the field. I think it's just a little clunky to figure out how to get those guys both involved. 609-403-0973. Mike, I can't remember the last time people didn't complain about the Eagles running the ball. It seems like the same old story every year since the Reed era. I'll take Mack over Sanders. Well, the owner's the same. That's one thing. The owner is the same. We know the owner doesn't like to run the ball. The owner wants to throw the football. So you're going to see a coach here who wants to run the ball, throw the ball, or who's going to throw the ball. Maybe he doesn't want to, but he's going to throw the ball more than he runs the ball. That's basically the direction from Jeff Lurie. I want a wide open offense. I want to throw the ball around. 609-403-0973. How many championships do the Eagles have with a featured running back? Sanders, McCoy, Westbrook. Answer, none. It's telling me Sirianni understands he needs a rotation, and as of now, it's not good enough. Well, the Eagles won the championship with a rotation, but other teams in this league have won. No, the featured back is kind of like gone away. No one's asking, to have Earl Campbell back there. Just how about somebody? You can't get through a whole season with no running game. This team is simply not good enough. It's not like you have Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. You've got a lot of young players. It's a different story if you're giving me, the greatest show on turf. It's not about having a featured running back. It's about utilizing any running back. I think he likes Gainwell. But I think if he had a guy like Mack that he trusts, he might utilize him more. That's all. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Mike, I've heard a lot of Sanders interviews, and they're cringeworthy. Everyone's a one-word answer. There's no passion. I know it's just an interview, but I do question how much he loves football and how much he's fighting to be the guy, or if he's just okay with being a guy. I mean, sure, if you're reading into people's interviews, I mean, he might just be a quiet guy, but maybe these are part of the reasons, as I'm saying, that they don't trust him, or maybe they just don't feel that he's the guy for this offense. I mean, there's been a lot of quiet guys out there that are pretty good. I mean, I don't know that him giving one word answers is the reason why they don't hand him the ball. I think 6 fumbles in 2 years could be closer to the reason why maybe they don't like him. And I don't even know that they don't like him. I'm just saying, hey, if there's interest in Marlon Mack, he's a guy that Sirianni knows. Why would they be kicking the tires on a running back when they don't run the ball and they have 3 guys here? Well, critical thinking a little deeper, instead of saying they don't run the ball, why a running back, would tell me maybe they don't like the running backs they have. That's how I would look at it, instead of saying, why do they run the ball? They don't even run the ball. Jay from Atlantic City says maybe the Eagles coaching staff does have a good reason not to run the running backs that they already have, but from a fan perspective, it just feels like they haven't tried hard enough, and everyone else, including sports commentators, agree that Sanders is a good back, above average even. It doesn't make sense to try a running back. Oh, it says it does make sense to try a running back that the coach trusts more. If trust is the issue, but I think a lot of fans just don't think the Eagles want to run. That's from Jay in Atlantic City. Well, let's tackle a couple things here. One, they haven't tried hard enough. It's a catch-22. They haven't tried hard enough. They don't trust the guy. They don't want to hand him the ball because they don't trust him. Now, everyone, including sports commentators, agree that Sanders is a good back. I think we think he's a good back. Do we know he's a good back? I mean, he has some explosiveness. He's had some big runs, but I don't know that he's a all-pro, Pro Bowl level running back. Is he good between the tackles? Is he big enough to kind of be a plotter? Is he a guy like Zeke Elliott? Is he more of a Tony Pollard? Is he, who knows? I don't think he's been really given a chance. But that being said, there has to be a reason. Forget Nick Sirianni. Why didn't Doug Peterson trust him? Right? Why didn't Doug Peterson trust Miles Sanders? Doesn't that make you think a little bit? Because Sanders has 48 carries this year. 48 carries this year. Last year, in the 12 games that he played, he had 164 carries. He didn't get very many opportunities last year either. He had less opportunities last year. Well, he played less games last year than he did the year before. But the big one for me is the catches. He went from 50 catches to 28. And this year he has 16, but he's only getting 6.9 yards per catch. His first year, he had 50 catches for 500 yards and 10 yards a carry, 10 yards a catch. That, to me, is the more interesting part. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Keep the text messages coming. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan is now open on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township next to Home Depot. Online, mattblattnissan.com. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City is on the way. We'll get his thoughts on the game tomorrow night. Also, will Ben Simmons play a week from tonight when the Sixers open the season? What a odd situation that has become. Mike's going to join me on the other side. But first, don't forget, coming up at 4 o'clock today, Jeff Mosher for today's Football at 4. Ian Eagle is here. Ian Eagle's one of the more entertaining play-by-play guys out there. Him and Harlan are probably two of my favorite. I got a chance to talk to Harlan last week, and I'll get Ian Eagle today, 5 o'clock, right here on the Sports Bash. All right, welcome back. Sports Bash 241 here on a Wednesday edition. So much going on. The baseball playoffs. We're starting to get into the championship series as the division series are winding down. We got one more left to go. Game 5 of the NLDS tomorrow night. If they were smart, they reschedule that game and play it tonight. Opposite the football game is not going to do them any favors. Let's bring Mike McGarry in from the Press of Atlantic City. We got so much to kind of hit on here. Michael, what's going on, man?
Hey, how are you, Mike? I'm well.
LA from San Francisco, does that constitute a travel day that they should not play the game tonight? Or is it smart to take the day off and not go up against the football?
Well, we all know the NFL is king, but Dodgers-Giants is pretty good, and there is a world that exists outside of Philadelphia football, so I think they'll be okay.
You think?
In the grand scheme of things.
What are we looking at? More 10 million more viewers on the football.
Yeah, if you played the game tonight and showed up highlights of like Super Bowl III or something, Super Bowl III might get more viewers than the MLB. Though I'm a baseball guy, I know you love baseball, and I think these playoffs have been, they've been top notch so far as excitement goes.
They have. You had the Freeman last night again to take the break. Does
he ever make out, Freddie Freeman? I see him play all the time. He seems to never make out.
He's a free agent, though, right? Isn't he a free agent?
Absolutely. Get the checkbook out.
Yeah, there you go. He would look nice, although he's left-handed. Would that be a problem? Him and Harper hitting back-to-back, lefty-lefty?
I think that'd be a problem Girardi would like to figure out.
Right, exactly. All right, Mike McGarry's here. We got a lot to dive into. One, we talked Monday, and the Simmons stuff had just kind of murmured. Now, Monday night, he shows up unannounced outside the Wells Fargo Center, texting Elton Brand, hey, I'm outside. Can somebody let me in? I need to take my COVID test. Let's start with that.
Yeah, this situation just gets more and more bizarre with every revelation that comes out about it. I mean, the image of Ben Simmons in the parking lot of the Wells Fargo Center, banging on a service door saying, let me in, I need to take a COVID test is just ridiculous. And this definitely doesn't seem to be a prodigal son returning, slay the fatted calf routine here basically going on. The questions only become more, not less since he returned. And you have what Doc Rivers said a couple of hours ago with the reporters in Camden reported about he doesn't exactly know if Simmons is back here to play. He won't go inside Simmons's head. I mean, this situation just seems to get more and more bizarre every day or every minute, basically.
Right. Now, Monday night, I actually went to the game Monday night, and oddly enough, I walked in. They had my pass. Oh, we've been waiting for you. Here you go. It was right on the top. They were waiting for me. And somehow Ben Simmons was not able to get right in the building. So he gets there, gets the COVID test. After the game, Doc says, I got to ask Woj. I don't even know what's going on here. So we're at the point that obviously now he met with them yesterday. Doc said it went great. But yet still no word on whether he's going to play Friday, whether he'll play Wednesday night when the season opens. Do you think he's just there so that he does? I mean, in the immortal Marshawn Lynch words, is he just there so he doesn't get fined?
It certainly is looking like that direction. And he doesn't look from the outside looking in, no inside information whatsoever. It doesn't seem like, this is a situation where let bygones be bygones. We're all in this together. Let's move forward. It doesn't certainly seem to be progressing in that situation. So nothing is going to happen that surprises me going forward. But it certainly doesn't seem like, hey, all issues have been solved and we're going to try to work this out together. In fact, it looks like he has reported because he wants to get paid and doesn't want to be fined. And maybe his people didn't really realize or misinterpreted how much the fines would be. I mean, losing $300,000 a basketball game is, $300,000 here, $300,000 there. Pretty soon you're talking about real money, even for somebody who's making $30 million a year. So like I said, it's progressing, but where it's going, who knows?
So today it was reported that they did meet Maury Brand, Ben Simmons, that he finally got his opportunity. And I don't know. We don't know how that went, but obviously the team has kind of been steadfast, Mike, that they want him to play. They hope that he changes his mind. We don't know where that's going to go, but do you anticipate, in your heart of hearts, do you see him on Friday night is their home opener against Brooklyn? Will he be on the court October 22nd against the Brooklyn Nets?
I'm going to say yes. If he's there, he's going to play, and they're going to play him. Look, it's to the point right now where it's in Simmons' interest to play, and it's in the Sixers' interest for him to play. So, but both for different reasons. I mean, it's in everybody's interest that Simmons plays. For the Sixers, it might get, the picture of him passing up the dunk in Game 7 out of everybody's minds. It might remind people what a dynamic regular season player he can be. Okay, so it would enhance his trade value. And for Simmons, it's also a chance to enhance his trade value, make him more marketable to other teams, and get paid. So I'm going to say yes, because it's in everybody's interest right now that he plays. Now, whether they do it happily, who knows? How it works out, who knows? But, it's in everybody's interest that Simmons play right now.
Sure, certainly in his, if he wants to legitimately be traded. The interesting part would be, what kind of player are you getting? Are you getting a new version of Ben Simmons, a more polished version, an evolved version? Because if he comes out and plays like that, then the Sixers are going to be less apt to want to move him.
Well, you're going to get the same version is what you're going to get. I mean, I don't think anybody thinks you're going to go out there and see a guy who's all of a sudden going to be shooting elbow jumpers and three-pointers, and maybe he'll be a little bit better from the free-throw line. Maybe he won't be. You're going to get the same version of a player. I just think it's, both sides need to sort of cleanse the palate a little bit.
Isn't it though, like Mike? Isn't it like a catch? It's like a catch-22 for him. If he goes out and shows a developed game, then the Sixers are going to be like, this is what we wanted you to do. We don't want to get rid of you. And then he's saying, no, I'm doing this because I want to get out of here.
Right. Well, if that happens, the Sixers will have an even bigger conundrum on their hands. But I don't think we've seen it before, right? I don't think anybody thinks he's going to come out and be any different than he was last season or in the playoffs. And like I said, for all the drama and for everything that's going on right now, the Sixers, even if Simmons comes back, okay, there's no doubt they're a better regular season team, but they're not a better playoff team. And that's where the problem is. So they still have the same problem that they had going into last year's playoff, going into the 19 playoffs, going into the 17 playoffs, is scoring in the fourth quarter of games, and Simmons' inability to do that. So it's in everybody's interest right now that he suits up and plays the regular season, but the long-term problems still hang over everybody. And I don't want to hear about, we got him a shooting coach and stuff like that. You're not fixing that now. You're not going to start with a shooting coach now and fix Ben Simmons while the season's going.
That was part of what did come out yesterday. That I guess they have a sports psychologist and a new shooting coach that is really going to focus on just working with him.
Yeah, the NBA you get the emails from the Sixers, right? I get the emails from the Sixers. I mean, the NBA is a whirlwind as far as practice goes. There isn't a lot of practice time once you grind up to the 82-game schedule. Work is done in the off season, not in season. So, I don't think you're going to be, we're going to see one Ben Simmons on October 20th, and you're going to see another one on May 20th.
All right, let's go to the football game tomorrow night. No Gronkowski, no David, no Winfield for the Buccaneers. Are you feeling that the short week in Philadelphia, coming off a win, that this one could be a little bit of a trap situation for Tampa Bay?
I don't think so. I look at it similar to the Chief game and the Dallas game. I think to win the game, obviously the Eagles are going to have to get outscored at Tampa Bay. But when I say that, I mean it's going to be it can be developed into a shootout type of game. I think Tampa is still scoring. Brady's still showing up. Those receivers are still showing up. I think Tampa's going to score 28, 35 points. They're going to put points on the board. They put 45 on the board last week. Can the Eagles outscore or win a shootout against Tampa? The similar situation that they were in against Dallas and Kansas City. They couldn't do it against those two teams. I don't think they're going to do it Thursday night.
All right, so on the Eagles running ball here, they run the ball 22.5% of the time this season. 22.5. Does he not like to run, or does he not trust the guys he has?
I think it's his philosophy at this point not to run. I think it's that's a situation that you see with a lot of young coaches maybe. And you're right. If one game plan to come out tomorrow night would be to come out and run the football, try to control the clock, and keep Tom Brady off the field. That's how you can win one of those shootout games. Limit the opportunities of the Tampa offense to score and maybe force a turnover or two on defense. You run the ball, control the clock. For years, that's been the formula for how an underdog team beats a favorite. favorite. That's what I would recommend the Eagles do, but they haven't shown any signs towards that this season. They got good running backs, right? Miles Sanders, good running back. The rookie, everybody likes him. The offensive line was supposed to be the strength of the team, though it's banged up now, but it played all right last weekend. It makes all the sense in the world not to run the football. He doesn't do it. I can only guess it's because he doesn't really believe in it.
Right. That's the thing. To me, Mike, it goes back to Peterson didn't use Sanders much either. So I'm wondering, is there something about Sanders that Peterson didn't use him and now Sirianni's not using him? Because there are some reports that the Eagles have some interest in Marlon Mack, who was his running back in Indianapolis. So does he want to get it back that he trusts more?
Well, let's also remember one thing, right? Aren't the Eagles owned by a guy named Jeffrey Lurie, who I believe after they went on the road and won a game in Green Bay, kind of quibbled about how the win was done because they ran the football too much and didn't throw it here. So I think you're seeing a little bit of an organizational philosophy. They lean on the pass. They don't lean on the run. It drives a lot of us crazy. But it's you point out Peterson, now you point out Sirianni. It might be an organizational thing. It might be a top-down thing rather than a bottom-up thing.
All right, Mike, I do a thing called Who's In, Who's Out on Tuesdays. I can't find the last two NFC playoff teams. Because of that, would you say that a team like Philadelphia is still in the mix when, all right, so far I got Dallas, Green Bay, Tampa, Arizona as my division winners.
Okay.
The Rams as my wild card, number one. My number two and number three, I'm just throwing darts. I got Minnesota and Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers would have to be somewhere in there, maybe on the periphery, right? And they have a win over the Eagles and stuff like that. We'll have to see how it goes out. Where I think you look at the AFC, I think it's more clearly defined, right? Of who's the teams.
Yeah, there's
there.
a lot less options in the AFC, but the NFC, right. You've got Chicago, you've got Minnesota, you've got Carolina, you've got New Orleans, Seattle, who lost their quarterbacks. Right, exactly. So the Eagles are right there with those teams.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be in that mix, right? And it's probably going to be maybe a season like we saw last year as far as the division, where maybe they're not winning a lot of games, but maybe they're mathematically in the playoffs. And you can say to yourself, well, if they win this Sunday, they're still in it and this and that. Because of the nature of the conference, it could very well be a year like that. Although in our heart of hearts, does anybody really think that the Eagles are a legitimate, bona fide, playoff team that can do some damage in the playoffs?
No, you're absolutely right. I don't think anybody has any ideas of grandeur that this team's a Super Bowl team, but is it a positive thing if this team makes the playoffs, especially when you have those other teams' picks, so you're not kind of relying on your own ineptitude to get you a good pick?
Right. Well, yeah, and I would agree. It's never a bad thing to make the playoffs. It's never a bad thing to win football games. You got a young quarterback in Jalen Hurts. It could be another step in his development and everything else like that. So it's never a bad idea to make the playoffs. So if they do, I don't think they're going to do it. I'm a guy who predicted 5-12. I'm sticking with that. I don't think they're going to be, win many more than 5-6 games. But if they can stick in the playoff race and maybe get in that playoffs, it's never a bad thing to play in the postseason, especially when you've got a young quarterback that you're trying to find out of, because that'll be another prime, opportunity for the Eagles to find out who Jalen Hurts is and see if he's an answer going forward.
He's Mike McGarry at AC Press. McGarry, he'll be back on Friday to recap the Eagles and the Bucs and take a look at the weekend. The baseball playoffs will be set by them and all the big high school football as well. Check out his must-win column in Friday's edition of the Press of Atlantic City. All right, Mike, take care, man.
All right, we'll see you down the road, Mike. Thanks.
There's Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, their columnist. And, of course, he joins us Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays here. His appearance is brought to you by Calvi Electric, now offering residential services for your home and business online at calvielectric.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, and you can listen on the free mobile app, which you can download in the Apple Store, Google Play, wherever you get your apps, and it's free. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle. When we come back, Jason Fitz will join us. We'll go around the NFL, take a look at the college football. What an unbelievable weekend in college football it was. All that and more with Jay Fitz coming up. All right, hour two of the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. I'm Mike Gill, at Mike Gill Show on Twitter. Follow me over there. Coming up at 3:40 today, Jake Fisher from Bleacher Report on the latest on this Ben Simmons saga. He's got a great article right now at Bleacher Report. We'll talk about it, dive into it. What's the latest? Will he play? He might even play Friday night. Who knows? I don't know. He was at practice today, but he can't practice with the team. He wasn't at practice. He was like doing his own thing because he's not eligible to practice yet. He can't be around other people because of the COVID situation. But he's in Philly, that we know. We'll dive into that coming up at 3:40 today with Jake Fisher from Bleacher Report. Also, the NFL Week 6 starts off on Thursday night with the Eagles taking on the Tampa Bay Bucks, who their injury report came out today, and it was loaded today with a lot of key players on that list. And the injury report for the Eagles was pretty clean. Lane Johnson will not play. He's the only one that has been ruled out for the game. Everybody else is a full participant in practice. So the Eagles are a heck of a lot healthier. Well, healthier when you say what they have left. I mean, they don't have Isaac Seumalo. They don't have Brandon Brooks. They don't have Brandon Graham. But they do have everybody else that is eligible. The only person who will not play will be Lane Johnson. And I would imagine they go back with Jordan Mailata at right tackle. You'll probably see Dillard again at left tackle. And the same configuration on the line. We've been talking about Miles Sanders in the running game there. You know, one thing is what's the deal with Dallas Goddard as well? Goddard was not listed on the injury report today, so we don't know what his status is for the game. He needs to test negative twice within 24 hours apart. So I guess he might have to take that test again tomorrow, depending on whether or not he got a test back yesterday. Who knows how that whole situation works? I think what we do know, I don't know that we know, but I think what we can figure out is that Goddard is vaccinated. That's what that would tell me, is because if he was unvaccinated, he would have to sit out for 5 days minimally. Because he is vaccinated, now that is not public information at this time, but I think we can tell by the time frame of what's going on here that he must be vaccinated.
Right. So the way it works is if you are unvaccinated, but you have no symptoms, you have to be quarantined for a minimum of 5 days, then have consecutive negative tests. If you have symptoms, it's 10 days missed, and then have consecutive negative tests. For vaccinated players, it's if you have no symptoms, then you need to have 2 concurring negative tests after the initial positive 24 hours apart for each negative test. So, for example, if he tested positive, let's say Tuesday morning, then he took another test this morning, he tested negative. Now he has to test negative tomorrow as well. Now, of course, we don't know exactly when he's getting his testing. I'm assuming the Eagles would try, I would assume, to try to time it out so he would be available for game time. Like, for example, for those who don't know, last night when the NHL opened their season, the Seattle Kraken had 3 guys all became available 2 hours before game time, because they literally got their second negative test just hours before game time back.
Yeah, so there's a possibility that he could play tomorrow night then.
Right. It's just about the timing of these tests.
Right, exactly. I would imagine, though, if you play on a Thursday night, they're going to accelerate your testing times.
I'm assuming that these tests are done in the morning as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to – I would imagine, like, if they play Sunday, they might say, hey, we'll take our time with getting you the test.
Right.
But the fact that they play Thursday night, I would imagine he probably gets one today, or he might have got one yesterday.
I'm assuming they get one every morning in these situations.
Yeah, because so I saw Tim McManus tweet that he was doubtful to play, but I would think that he'd probably be more on pace to play as long as he doesn't have COVID.
Well, that's the thing. He had a positive test on Tuesday, is the reports. If he tests positive again today, he's definitely out.
Correct. Now, if his first, obviously he came up positive in some situation because that's what put him on the list.
Right, because the way it works now is, for those who don't know, if you are a vaccinated player, you don't get tested every day. You get tested once a week. So I guess Tuesday was the Eagles' once a week test.
So he tests positive.
Right.
And that means after the first positive test, so that means he probably tested today.
Right.
At whatever time he tested today, he's going to have to test at that time again tomorrow.
Correct. And then I don't know how long exactly it takes for the results to come in.
I would imagine at this point, they're pretty quick.
I'm assuming so, at
Put it
least.
this way. He'll know his result by the time they kick off tomorrow night.
Oh,
that's for sure.
Yeah.
So you're going to know whether or not he's going to be ready, obviously. But my point is, they're going to have the test results way ahead of kickoff tomorrow.
You would think so.
I would think that they're going to have enough time to say he is in the game. I mean, if you're the Eagles, you don't know if Goddard's playing or not. Like, that changes your game plan a little bit.
Absolutely, it does. And you also got to think about, like I said, if other sports have already executed the idea that they can get people cleared for negatives within hours of game time, I'm sure the NFL and its infrastructure can get it done too.
Yeah, no, I would think 100%. And like, quite frankly, the possibility, right? The possibility of them not having a resolution on this, to me, is 0%.
I just have trouble believing that the only thing that's going to stop Goddard from playing is another positive. I feel like that's the only thing.
Absolutely. Right. It's not going to be, we didn't get the test administered to him in a timely enough fashion.
Right.
It's going to be, he tested positive again.
And the reason, really quick, why we can also say this is because we know that the professional sports organizations, for example, if you or I go get a COVID test right now, Mike, we got to wait probably 24 hours, maybe 36 hours for a result.
Don't they have the rapid test?
Well, no. In order for you to pass the COVID, we're talking about the nose one, not the saliva rapid.
Gotcha.
Goddard has to pass the PC, PCR, I believe it's called, the one that they put up your nose, basically. Mm-hmm. That's not rapid.
I'm not interested in that one.
Well, that's the one you would have to take.
I don't want that one.
I've taken that test numerous times. I know it's no fun, but
I don't want that one.
It's a deal where, listen, you got to go get tested. But if you were me and we got the thing stuck up our nose, it's probably taking 24, 36 hours. But the NFL and the NBA and the NHL and Major League Baseball, they're using independent labs that get them the results way faster than the average person does. You can't compare what the average person's protocol situation to somebody who plays a professional sport who has an independent lab at their beckoning call.
Right. So Philadelphia has Johnson out and Goddard murky at this point. Everybody else is clear to go. But on the flip side of things, you've got no Levante David. You've got no Rob Gronkowski for the second straight week. And the other guy that I think is now out as well that, is kind of an interesting addition to this mix is Winfield. He is out. Antoine Winfield is out for the game as well. So that's two pretty important guys. And by the way, Jason Pierre-Paul is also questionable for the game as well. If he doesn't play, you've got one of your key linemen, one of your key linebackers, and your key safety all missing the game. And their defensive backfield is pretty weak to begin with.
Right. They already are down multiple guys at cornerback to the point where they had to bring in Richard Sherman off the street to come in there and play games for them. So their entire defense is looking very, 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 very gainable on when it comes to yards on the ground and in the air.
Right. Now, the way that I kind of look at this is in the game, like I put Tampa Bay's offense with the Kansas City, with the Dallas, like they might even be better than Dallas and Kansas City offensively. Those three are in a different stratosphere offensively from the Carolinas, the Atlantas, and the San Franciscos. The question really becomes, in this game tomorrow night, how do you pull off an upset? Well, the ways you do it would be, you didn't get one flipping stop in the game against Kansas City. Not a punt, nothing. They scored every single time they had the ball. You have to find a way to get off the field and get them off the field minimally 3 times. If you want to upset that team tomorrow, you have got to hold them from scoring 3 possessions because their offense is going to put points on the board. They just can't put 40. And my reasoning would be is because, yes, their defense is not very good, but you don't have the firepower to put up 40. So if you want to win this game tomorrow, it's going to have to be, 35-30, something to that extent where they're scoring on you, but you found a way to make the stop. You found a way to get off the field. You found a way to just get off that field. They got yards, they scored points, but you found that way. That's how you have to do it. That's the way.
You go hit Tom Brady's hand 20 times.
Well, and Brady, by the way, is on the list. He is a full participant and ready to play tomorrow night, as we kind of anticipated.
Yeah, Brady said this week that his hand is, is sore, but it's not going to keep him from playing.
No, but is it going to be a factor in the game? I think that throws into the mix too. But, and
it's a shame it's not cold out tomorrow.
We're going to talk to Moshe about this at 4:00 today. But, the blueprint, we talked about this on Monday. Tony Dungy said against Kansas City, the blueprint against them is cover 2, play your safeties back, don't let them beat you over the top, keep everything in front. You got to almost, Darius Slay moved around with DJ Moore. Who's he moving around with this week? You got to move him around with Mike Evans? You got to move him around with Godwin? You got to move him around with Antonio Brown? You don't have a guy. So do the Eagles just go and default to go back to zone with their 2 safeties back? Now you're back in the same situation you were against Kansas City, where you're in this cover 2. You don't have the linebackers. And let me tell you something. Leonard Fournette is a little bit more of a load to bring down than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They've also got Giovanni Bernard. So they have a couple extra weapons in their running game that Kansas City doesn't have. I think the passing games are comparable, although Tampa Bay probably has more of an arsenal, just different. Right. Evans is a more physical player than Tyreek Hill is. Hill's a more of a speed guy. Evans is a more of a physical guy. I talked about this before, though. Antonio Brown, people forget this guy was one of the best receivers in the league. He just went AWOL for about a year and a half. He's back, dude. I mean, he has not been a problem for this team. He has not been an off-the-field distraction. And adding Antonio Brown to their offense, for God's sakes, I mean, so I don't think you can move Slay around with their best receiver. So you're back to where you were against Kansas City, where you might be sitting in a zone.
And listen, I don't mind the concept of running a zone, but I talked about this last week and this week, Mike, when it comes to zone defense. You can play a zone, but it can't be that passive zone, that Jonathan Gannon version of the Jim Schwartz sticks defense, where you're constantly waiting for everything to come to you. You got to play an aggressive zone. You got to attack your area of the field. You can't just watch the quarterback and wait for him to chuck it and then react. You got to get your body into your zone and then attack that area of the field where the player is. Because what did Dak Prescott do? He manipulated the zone constantly. What did Patrick Mahomes do? He constantly evaded pressure and still got the ball off. Now, Brady is not as athletic as those guys, but Brady is super intelligent, and there's nothing he's never seen defensively. So you're not going to outwit him. You're not going to out-trick him, but you can't just sit back and hope for the best.
This is a matchup where if you're going to win, you basically need them to make mistakes they typically don't make, right? You need them to do something much like the Super Bowl game. Brady fumbled the ball. I mean, he got the strip sack. I mean, if he doesn't get strip sack there, they probably win that game. They went back and forth. You didn't get a stop until you needed a stop. That's what's going to have to happen here. You're going to have to get the stop when you need a stop. If you get a stop early in the game, that's great, but you're going to have to capitalize on the few opportunities that you have. That's where their offense comes into play. Can Jalen Hurts in this offense manufacture drives, put points on the board? They did it against Kansas City. This is a similar type of defense to Kansas City. I would think this defense is better than Kansas City's defense, though. Kansas City's defense is horrible against the run. Tampa Bay's is more loose against the pass. They do stop the run pretty well. So I think it's a very interesting battle. And it's a battle of, hey, look, you have nothing to lose in this game. Because as we talked about yesterday, even if the Eagles lose the game and they fall to 2-4, they have opportunities to win games coming up. So this isn't like a make or break game. They had to win the Carolina game. If they wanted to think about playoffs, this is if you're thinking about playoffs. Look, if some people out there are like, playoffs, what are you talking about? The organization is thinking about playoffs. They're 2-3. They are in this thing. They won that game at Carolina. They have 2 road wins. They feel like they are in this mix right now. There's no question about that. This is not an important game in that grand scheme of things to them. The game they needed was last week. They had to have that game to think about playoffs, and they got that game. Now, this is a cherry on the top to get one if you can. But keep in mind, if they lose this game, that would mean they would lose their first 3 games in a row at home. You would be 0-3 at home. And now you might say, man, that's a good thing. But your home games coming up are against the Chargers, another game you're going to be an underdog. The Saints, and you have Dallas at home coming up. So you might have to find ways to make the playoffs if you want to by winning games on the road. That's why this is an interesting conundrum that you have coming up.
It's also should be noted that those losses to the 49ers and to the Chiefs, those are coaches with quarterbacks who have been in the last couple of Super Bowls. It's not like you lost at home to some schlep.
Well, no, I don't think anybody's suggesting that you should have won those
Well,
home
you
games.
could have won
Your
the
home
49ers
schedule is definitely a more difficult task than your road schedule. The problem is winning road games in the NFL is not easy.
Right.
So you got stuck playing home games against the best teams in the league so far. You know, Tampa Bay, the Chargers coming up, Kansas City, which I get it. They're not right now. They're 2-3. They have struggled.
They still have Pat Mahomes. They still have Andy Reid.
They are definitely, I think if you ask most people, they put that team in the conversation as still, I think most people believe in them. In fact, I think the Chargers, though, are for real. And the Chargers, unfortunately, you play them coming up at home down the stretch. So I would say Tampa Bay, the Chargers, and Dallas. Those three teams are left on your schedule. I think that you are, to win those three games, you are going to need a lot to happen. To win those three games, you are not, you would need them to just, that game where you're like, man, what happened to them? This, like when Tennessee went to the Jets and lost.
Right.
That's what needs, like those type of things. When you get a win like that, it's just either the team doesn't show up, they make a ton of mistakes, they just play sloppy. Thursday night, you're playing against a team that is just flat out better than you are. That's not the question, right? That's not the question. Is the game against Carolina, I asked all week, this is a winnable road game. Like you are to me, Philadelphia is on the level of Carolina, right? They're there. Most people, I think, felt that Philadelphia was below Carolina, but I never felt that way. I felt that Philadelphia was on the level of Carolina, and they showed that not only are they on the level of Carolina, they beat them.
Keep this in your back pocket for the Chargers game. The two games they scored the least number of points this year against was 20 against Washington and 17 against the Cowboys. So they can be limited. That might not stop them, but you can limit them. There is a formula out there.
Yeah, to me, they are not quite offensively in the same realm as Kansas City, Dallas, Tampa Bay. Mike Williams is having an unbelievable season. Keenan Allen is a very crafty wide receiver.
Herbert's a stud.
Has been very good. They use him very well. I would like to see Sirianni use Gainwell the way he uses, the way they use Eckler. And by the way, the way that Sirianni used Eckler or Shane Steichen used Eckler when he was in San Diego, Los Angeles. I guess they were in San Diego for a little bit together.
Yeah, they were staying a little bit together and then moved to Los Angeles.
Couple text messages. Mike, do you think Antonio Gibson is a primary back? Do I think he's a primary back? It's a tricky one. They don't use him as like a guy that they turn around and hand the ball to 20 times, but he does get way more touches.
He gets the majority of the touches. If you mean a primary back in terms of the guy who gets the most touches, yes. If you mean a guy who's going to run between the tackles 15 to 22 times a game, no.
Yeah, he's got 79 carries this season in 5 games for 313 yards. That's 4 yards a carry. He only has 10 catches. That's where I think Gibson hasn't really been as big a part of their offensive game plan as I would have envisioned. Now, the question he goes on to ask, well, Gainwell was so good at Memphis at running back that Gibson couldn't get on the field at running back, so they had to put him at wide receiver.
Correct.
Now Gibson is the guy at Washington. Gainwell can handle the load. I'm not suggesting that Gainwell can't handle more playing time. I don't think that the Eagles view him as an every down, carry the load type of back for a 16, 17 now game season.
But
that's where I'm differing.
Isn't that part of that because of the fact that most teams don't have that guy? That guy doesn't really exist in today's game that much outside of when
if
Saquon's
you go
healthy
back
and
and watch a game from 5 years ago, just go back and watch a game from 5 years. How much wider, broader the running backs look.
Yes.
Just the difference in the size.
They were built different.
It's a crazy, like I was, with the stuff that we write for the website, we've got to get pictures. And sometimes you're looking through pictures. And for instance, the Eagles play Tampa Bay. Well, the last time they played Tampa Bay was 2013. So I'm going back to 2013 looking for a picture. The players in that game, their body types, the running backs are just wider. Like, I don't know if it's because the shoulder pads are bigger. It's the running back specifically just looks like a much smaller guy now than the guys we saw. 2013, you're going back 8 years ago.
Right, but it's because of guys you just mentioned, like Austin Eckler. These guys are like Alvin Kamara. These guys they're lower to the ground. They're lean explosive. They're not powerful explosive.
I don't like these conversations. You're getting way too scientific for the people out there. They don't understand what lean and powerful mean. Come on, man.
Well, maybe they should elevate their level of education then.
Not on this show. We're trying to talk down to the people's level, not over their heads.
No, I try to elevate people. I don't try to talk down.
I try to talk right on your level, people. 6:00 tonight, Josh will talk over your head on game night. Dave Weinberg Wednesday. This is what he means. These guys are smaller than they were in the past. Forget how they got there. They're just not as big. Derrick Henry had 3 fumble season followed by a 5 fumble season, Mike. To lose your faith in Sanders off 6 in 2 years is a bit much. Here's the difference, Steven. Derrick Henry was a first-round pick, Heisman Trophy winner. Miles Sanders was a second-round pick. He fumbled in a previous regime, and then he came in with 6 fumbles. And the new regime said, why didn't the old coach use him? Derrick Henry had a lot more equity built up from his draft status. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. We'll talk Jake Fisher from Bleacher Report coming up at 3:40. You're not going to want to miss it. He's got the latest. And what happened in that meeting with Ben Simmons, Doc Rivers, Daryl Morey, and everybody else? He's got the details coming up. All right, Mike, Sports Bash Live. I'm Mike Gill. This is the 3 o'clock hour. It's brought to you by Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union. Choose better banking for great rates on loans, refinancing credit cards, free or low-cost financial products, and friendly personal service. Visit jerseyshorefcu.org for more information. I'm Mike Gill. Coming up in about 10 minutes from now, Jake Fisher from Bleacher Report on this Ben Simmons stuff. Now, everybody today is being asked about Ben Simmons. Danny Green, Seth Curry, and the question of the day seemingly is, does he owe you guys an apology at all? You know, does he come back here? Does he owe you guys anything? Does he owe you guys an apology? What about when he returns? Does he just come back? Nothing's crazy. Nothing's different. He just comes back in. Danny Green essentially says he doesn't owe us anything. If he apologizes, he apologizes. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Like, I think that the fans have this idea that, like, these players, they don't care. Like, sure, they care. They're talking about it. But when push comes to shove, it's just a business to them. Like, we don't look at things as a business. Most fans look at things as fans, which is what being a fan's about. There's no problem with that. But look, in that world, man, it's a different world behind those walls. It's a different world inside that locker room. It just is. Yeah, they talk. They're human beings. They're like, dude, this guy's a jerk. He needs to get his ass back here. Like, all that stuff. But when push comes to shove, they know that they might be in that situation at some point too. They know that that might be them that doesn't show up, that has to hold out, that isn't happy with their situation. We look at it as fans like, you got to be there, you got to do this, you got to do that. They look at it as, look, this is my boy. He plays on my team, and I don't like the way he's handling it, but he's my boy. There might be a little awkwardness when he comes back, but I think we go way too granular on how these things occur. Like Danny Green said, if he apologizes, he apologizes. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Like, come back and play, man. We need you. Like, essentially, that's what Danny Green said. Like, his quotes basically tell the story. His quotes tell you basically everything. Like, Danny Green's a pretty straight shooter. And he says, like, he's asked, like, does he have to apologize? Quote, if he does, he does. If he doesn't, he doesn't. That doesn't matter at this point. We just want everyone to come here and show up and do their part, do their jobs. He says, I'm not asking him to do anything differently than what we normally do, because what he does, we're normally effective. We're very good. We're the number one team in the East. We're not asking him to shoot jump shots. Just come in, be a pro, do your job. That's what we expect of him. If he apologizes, cool. But you guys work with people every day. You don't expect from people not showing up, family issues, sickness, or whatever it may be. They come in and do their job. This is the situation. These players want to win. These players want to have the best players out there. It's like when a guy is the starter all season long, and then at the trade deadline, you make a trade, and then that guy doesn't play anymore. That's business, man. You think the guy who's been starting the whole time goes to practice, leaves it out on the floor, practices his ass off, and then some guy who hasn't even been here all season takes my spot? That's the business. The team wants the best players. They want the best opportunity to win. Danny Green says all we need to know. If he apologizes, he apologizes. If not, whatever. Just give me the best players. I think that lays it out perfectly, the way that these players are thinking and how differently it is from fans, which is cool. Like, I get it. We're on the other side of the wall, like that fourth wall. We just can't break it down. Like, what's going on behind those closed doors? We'll never know. Maybe they hate him. Maybe they love him. Maybe they are indifferent. We're just like trying to scratch through that wall, like Andy Dufresne with a rock pick, trying to pick through that little wall. How many years did it take him to bang through that wall before he finally was able to get out? We'll never get through that wall. We'll never know what's going on in that locker room with this whole Ben Simmons thing. But we just got to go with what we're hearing. I think Seth Curry today, Seth Curry and Danny Green are two of the veterans on this team. They're guys who have been in the league a little bit longer, right? They're two guys that, I think can speak their mind a little bit more, especially Danny Green. Danny Green's a guy who I think can really say what he means and say what he wants to say. I mean, he has this podcast that he has said stuff on. But Seth Curry, same thing. He said, look, I haven't seen or heard from Ben Simmons, but I'm ready to welcome him back. Now, Curry said today, same thing. Simmons doesn't have to explain anything to me. Just play hard. Just come back and play. That's it. That's it. 609-403-0973 on the text board. 609-403-0973. It's in your bleeping contract behind the scenes of Ben Simmons' roller coaster holdout, sudden return, and what comes next. Jake Fisher from Bleacher Report has the details on all of that in a new report at Bleacher Report. Inside Ben Simmons' roller coaster return to Philadelphia. Where does it stand? Will he play? Jake Fisher has the latest, and he'll join me next right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN this hour, brought to you by Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union. Stick around. Jake Fisher on the other side. It's in your bleeping contract. Who said that and why? Find out next.
You can watch the Sports Bash live now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Search 97.3 ESPN or visit our website, 973ESPN.com.
All right, 3 o'clock hour is brought to you by Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union. Thanks for hanging out with me, Mike Gill, at Mike Gill Show. Jake Fisher is Bleacher Report. His book is called Built to Lose, How the NBA's Tanking Era Changed the League Forever. One of the guys the Sixers tanked for was Ben Simmons. It's not going so well, but he is back behind the scenes of Simmons' roller coaster holdout and sudden return to Philadelphia. Now, I was at the game on Monday night. I somehow got in the building, Jake Fisher. Ben Simmons was not allowed in. He had a text to get in the building. I'm allowed in. Ben Simmons is not. That's because he didn't tell anybody he was coming. Give us a little background on what happened Monday that propelled Simmons to finally show up unannounced. I don't think Jake's hearing me. Do we hear him? He's all kind of looking at me like.
I hear you. Do you have me?
Yeah, I got you. So,
all right, the sound
sounds
delayed. No, I think the unfortunate thing here is I don't know why Ben decided to show up on Monday, and I don't think the Sixers know why either. When Daryl Morey and Elton Brand sat down with Ben Simmons at the team's practice facility last night on Tuesday, they asked him for reasoning behind his appearance and the surprise behind it, and he just said apparently something on the lines of, I just decided to come. And, I talked to people with his representation team, and it's pretty clear that him showing up by surprise was by design, that they wanted to take the Sixers by surprise for whatever reason. I don't know the reasoning, but they thought this was some type of next step in their path towards pushing Ben to a different team.
So he doesn't show up because he wants to play in Philadelphia, essentially. He shows up because every door has been kind of shut in his face. Is that how it kind of seems, Jake?
Well, the way it's been communicated to me, and I've talked to high-ranking people on both sides of this issue, let's say, in the last, over the last couple of days, and a lot of people yesterday. And it seems like, from the jump, this started back at the Combine in Chicago when Rich Paul, Ben Simmons' agent, found Daryl Morey and Elton Brand on separate occasions and said that Ben was looking to be moved and to be traded elsewhere. And he hasn't really said exactly why in much certain terms to Philadelphia people, but from the conversations I've had, clearly he's kind of exhausted by the pressure cooker of this situation of playing in this market with the fit questions that have always existed between him and Joel. Obviously, they're the two crown jewels of the process, and his lack of shooting and their size and the spacing issues has been, as big of a theme and a big talking point with his team as any throughout Ben's career. You throw in the Game 7 loss and the Doc post-game comments on what Joel said post-game, and I think that's where they started to view the situation was irreparable for them. But the Sixers didn't want to trade Ben Simmons, even after the Game 7, woes and not being able to score in the fourth quarter and passing up that open dunk. The Sixers still to this day want Ben Simmons in town. They're just open to moving him if Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal or someone of that nature would become available. And I think knowing that's also helped increase Ben Simmons' want and interest to play elsewhere as well.
Jake, obviously, he didn't talk to the team since August. So do we know any details on how the meeting went between Simmons and the team, that he got his first chance to kind of say, hey, I'm back, it's good to see you? Or did he sit in the corner quiet and let his representatives speak for him? How did yesterday essentially go?
So from what I've been told, he essentially just met in a private conference room, let's say, with Daryl Morey and Doc Rivers. Elton Brand was not present to my knowledge. And I think from there, Doc and Daryl started going over kind of their plan to reintegrate him. I think that's been the Sixers' big focus here from the conversations I've had. It sounds like the Sixers have been just preparing and doing their diligence, from talking to sports psychologists to hire a new shooting coach and, They also just have plans for physical, this weightlifting type stuff and film session type stuff they have planned for him to kind of ease him back into, the Sixers team environment, being that they've been in a training camp situation for weeks now, and he hasn't been a part of the team, and opening night is next week. So, I think that was the primary focus of the conversation. As I wrote in an article today on Bleacher Report that you were referencing earlier, the Sixers did ask him why he came back and why he wants out. And the only thing he really did tell and reiterate to Daryl and Doc on Tuesday, what I was told, was that he just wants a fresh start and a new situation. And he's back. We don't know if he's going to play. Maybe that's your next question. But for now, he is back with the intent of being a professional, it sounds like, with the goal of ultimately playing elsewhere, sometime soon, he hopes.
So, yes, eventually we'll get to the question on whether or not we anticipate him playing, but many people, the fans obviously, Jake, believe he's only back because he's getting fined. So is he back so that he doesn't get fined?
I don't definitively have that answer. There are definitely a lot of people in the NBA who believe that is the case, being that coincidentally he showed up right when his total number of fines and missed game checks was hovering right around $1 million. That's a pretty big benchmark number, right? I talked to a couple other agents in the NBA who were kind of like, whoa, that is a massive dollar amount to lose a client and to still have nothing change in the situation. But then, there are people with Clutch Sports I talked to who basically implied this was kind of the plan all along. He was willing to miss game checks and be a distraction and try to force their hand to trade him during training camp, but that perhaps, maybe he was going to report back regardless with the idea that maybe they could recoup some of this money. That doesn't seem likely from people I've talked to in the Players Union and around the league. But I don't know if there really was a method to the madness and to him returning and all that. Otherwise, that they wanted to create a bit of a media storm to push or to force Daryl Morey's hand. And I combine force and push there, and try to get a move out of town, but it didn't materialize. And I think he realizes now the best option moving forward was at least to report to Philadelphia instead of collecting those fines, like you mentioned.
Jake Fisher from Bleacher Report. His article is up at bleacherreport.com. You can follow him at Jake L. Fisher. What is the relationship between Ben and Doc Rivers? Is that a part of the frostiness between a return here? Do they not get along? Do they not see eye to eye? Is there some sort of issue with those two?
I don't know if there's an issue specifically. It was just I've been told that they never really have gotten off onto great footing together. I'm sure there's an element of the head coach who used to be a point guard being a bit overbearing or more demanding of his floor general, if you will. But I also think there's been a personality clash. It seems like they're just kind of different people, and just haven't really been able to find a synergy alongside each other. I also think catering to Joel Embiid and having this offense and this whole franchise really start to be revolving around him. I mean, it makes sense that it has, right? He was just the number 2 runner-up in MVP, or the runner-up, the number 2 in the MVP voting in the league. But I'm sure that might, in their relationship with Doc, I'm sure that's also reflected too, in that Simmons is not the centerpiece of this offense. It is Joel. So I think, yes, mending that relationship is going to be important here. But also, it doesn't seem like they've been really best buds throughout this anyway. So I think I don't know if this will be that much more of a dramatic change of events from where the relationship was previously, being that they've been talking all offseason. Whenever the Sixers had obviously you said they were out of contact for a month, which they were. They haven't spoken to Ben since that August meeting in Rich Paul's home, but every time they did have that meeting, or just like they gathered on Tuesday, it's been Doc. So Doc's been involved. So I don't know if it's necessarily a roadblock for it moving forward.
Obviously, the light little back and forth between I don't want to play with Joel or his game doesn't match mine. Joel fired back and said, everything we've done is for you. Can those two guys get past it? From what we understand, like we know their relationship is kind of awkward, not best of friends, but is that going to be something that will be a hurdle as well?
I'm sure it's going to be part of the Sixers have this elaborate plan to integrate Ben into the team environment, right? Like we were talking about before. I'm sure one of those steps are to clear the air and make sure that water gets under that bridge between Joel and Ben. But I think at the end of the day, in the NBA, winning ultimately trumps everything. And, both Embiid and Ben had their contracts locked up, but, they clearly both have aspirational goals in terms of legacy, in terms of stature in the NBA. And to do that successfully, you have to win. And I think when a team is winning, it can push a lot of that negativity and that nonsense to the side. And a winning locker room is pretty typically a happy one. So if they come back and Ben does play and they start off hot, I mean, this was the team that was the number one seed in the Eastern Conference last year, right? Kyrie's doing what he's doing up in Brooklyn. The Bucks won the title, obviously, but they're not a team that I would say is demonstrably better with Philadelphia at full strength. And who knows? Maybe Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal do become disgruntled sometime in the early aughts here, and there's a trade that gets made for one of those guys. But for now, I think as long as the Sixers come back at full strength with Ben Simmons in the lineup and they're successful, a lot of these issues, a lot of these interpersonal disconnects can kind of get not glossed over, but mended a little bit, not fully healed, but mended a little bit in terms of they're always showing up in that victory column.
Jake Fisher, Bleacher Report. In your article, you mentioned that there is a plethora of teams, 9 by name, a 10th mystery team, but obviously none of them have made a deal that would make the Sixers want to pull the trigger on this right now. So during this whole thing, Morey has kind of remained like, we don't want to move it, as you said, unless there's this thing. But is he back just to get moved to anybody, or is he back and the Sixers want to convince him along the way, or is he only acquiescing if they agree to try to get him out of here? Whether a deal that the Sixers want appears to them or not.
Ben Simmons and his representatives have had it made very clear to them that the Sixers are not going to trade him for a deal they deem is below his value, or something that is not going to simultaneously keep them at the same level of championship contention while also keeping them in the mix to have a package that would go and help them get a Damian Lillard or a Bradley Beal. And they're aware that probably might not happen until December. So I think for now, Ben is reporting back. Yeah, I think not losing money is probably a big part of that calculus. But also, I think they're willing to do what they can to get him out of town. And there's certainly a notion that some people in the league have that, you see him if he gets back, and he's playing well and someone gets an injury, maybe there's a trade opportunity there too. I think he is what he is. People know he's a 25-year-old, 3-time All-Star who just finished runner-up in Defensive Player of the Year. I think teams their offers are just lower right now because they think Philly's in a position of weakness and that they don't need to, provide their largest offer they can because Philly has to trade him somehow. Philly's point is they don't. So it's a matter of which side's going to bend and break. But I also think it's a matter of what other circumstances reveal themselves that allow another team to make a bigger offer, or that allows Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal to become, available on that open market.
Jake, I got about 30 seconds. They play on the road Wednesday night in New Orleans. They play at home on Friday against the Nets. Will he be on the floor for either one of those games?
Why not? I think it's trending in that direction. If he's not playing in their season opener, something catastrophic would have had to happen.
All right, so it looks like you think Ben Simmons will be back on the floor opening night, Wednesday, right here. You can listen to the game on 97.3 ESPN. Hey, the book is Built to Lose. Get Jake Fisher's book. It'll tell you the story of how they got Ben Simmons and how other teams have tried to follow suit. It's called Built to Lose, How the NBA's Tanking Era Changed the League Forever. Yeah, you got guys signing 40 – Thanks, Jake. Appreciate it. You got guys signing 4-year deals who no longer want to play under those 4-year deals. That's how the tanking era changed. Jake Fisher, Bleacher Report, he goes into detail on a lot of things that happened. We mentioned the part, Doc Rivers, in the article, he is in a meeting with Clutch, and he basically shouts out at Rich Paul's home. It's in your bleeping contract to report and play. Obviously, Rivers frustrated and to the point where I'm not going to put up with this. He wants to see his guy back. This thing is going to be interesting. But Jake Fisher just insinuated something catastrophic would have to happen for him not to play. Wednesday night, will he be on the floor? Football at 4 is next. more of the actual targets and catches, even though the numbers are bigger for Goddard. So that kind of tells me they're trying to serve two masters, kind of like we've discussed with a lot of the things they've done with this team.
Oh, yeah. I mean, sometimes that's, whether it's you're talking about the field of play or the front office, I mean, there's a lot of masters being served, and I do think it's part of it. And I also think that part of the issue is that the offense right now lacks an identity. It's being called a very college-like offense from people who are smarter than me, people around the league who see the Eagles on tape. And, there's a lot of short stuff, RPOs, quick stuff, everything designed to, I guess, cater to Jalen Hurts' strengths, and not so much conventional offense stuff, which in my opinion doesn't mean Jalen Hurts can't do it. I just think that the coaching staff is trying a little bit too hard to try to replicate maybe like an Oklahoma type style offense around him, instead of saying, all right, Jalen, we're in the NFL now, got to play some NFL football. Let's see you do it. It's supposed to be an evaluation year.
I saw last night, and I wrote an article about this on 97.3ESPN.com, to which the comments you can only imagine, Jeff Mosher, to which Jeremy Fowler reported that, one team that could be interested in Marlon Mack would be Philadelphia. Now, he's a running back. And, of course, the comments. Well, they don't run the ball. Why would they be interested in a running back? Why the hell are they looking at a running back? They never run. Well, Mack was the running back in Indianapolis with Nick Sirianni. He had 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. And this kind of goes back to something we talked about on Monday. Maybe if he had a running back that he trusted more, he would utilize that more. So if you're hearing that, and I'm not saying you hearing, but if there's reports that they might be interested in a player like Mack, does that kind of indicate that they don't trust the running back and they don't trust their running game?
It's either that or it's something about a guy, maybe having a comfort zone with your own players. We see coaches all the time. They want their own hand-picked players. We see Kenneth Gainwell on the field a lot, which has not been bad, by the way. He's been good when he's on the field, but it's just an observation that this is a guy who was picked by this regime.
Right.
So I can't find too many people who I trust that would tell me they think that Marlon Mack is a better running back than Miles Sanders, or gives you a more explosive dynamic. And people seem to label Miles as kind of a scat back, but he's not. He runs hard up the middle. I mean, he did last year especially. And I don't know why, if that's a case where he has not earned the trust of the coaching staff, I couldn't tell you what he has not done, because I know for a fact, I think we talked about it last time, that people felt Miles Sanders had a Pro Bowl level training camp. So whatever happened from the end of training camp till now, I mean, you look at the end of last week's game, right? And he runs out of bounds twice when you need to stay out of bounds. Those are bad decisions. But the ball was being taken out of his hands long before that ever happened. So I just don't understand what's going on personally.
Well, and I kind of
we'll
indicated, like him going out of bounds twice there is, a boneheaded decision. And are those the type of things that they're seeing, that of reasons why they don't trust him and why he doesn't get more opportunities in the heart of the game because of what we saw there, because they don't trust him? I don't know. I mean, that is a mystery to all of us here, but Doug Peterson didn't use Sanders all that much, and now the new staff's not using him, all that much either. You wonder if there's something there. So that's something to kind of look at. But this is a game, Moshe, where the running game, it's probably not the way to go if you want to beat Tampa Bay, correct?
Yeah, I know. For all the people who think that they're going to start running now, now you place Tampa Bay. I think they have one of the top 5 run defense, and they don't have a very good pass defense. So it just invites the idea of passing on them even more. However, people will tell you, if you want to beat the Bucs and you don't feel like you have the offensive firepower to outscore them, what you want to try to do is play a ball control style offense. That could be short passes and dink and dunk, but eventually it could also be running the ball. So I imagine, despite the fact that they are a successful run defense, you're going to have to try to think of ways to put the ball in the hands of your running backs and keep moving the chains and not give Tom Brady 7 or 8 possessions.
Yeah, I know that they have struggled against the pass. And obviously, you don't want to get into a shootout situation with them because they have so many weapons on the offensive side of the ball. And one problem for Philly, which, last week they got 3 interceptions. Well, Sam Darnold's not playing quarterback, number one. And number two, Jeff, the Panther offensive line is one of the weakest units in football. Conversely, Tampa Bay's offensive line is one of the best units in football. So you can't count on the same amount of pressure.
No, you can't. It's kind of weird how they've had to play the Chiefs, who have this very good offensive line, very good offense. Then they go to the Panthers, bad offensive line. Back to the Bucs now, very good offensive line. A couple of weeks ago they had Dallas. Wonder at what point do they get to play an offensive line that's like pretty good, not great, or not terrible either. But that's just the way the schedule has been for them. Honestly, not a lot of people expect them to beat Tampa Bay. I don't. But once you're out of this game, I feel like we're going to get a chance to really evaluate this team, this coaching staff, because there'll be a string of games in the next 5 or 6 weeks after where you'll feel that the Eagles have a better chance to win. You may not think they're favorites, but, Vegas is going through it right now with what they've got going on. The Lions aren't very good. Obviously, the Chargers will be favored. They're a very good team, but they're not necessarily unbeatable, I don't think, either. And then you'll start to get into New Orleans. There'll be some games where you're like, okay.
Yeah. Well,
okay,
guess what?
like these are good measuring stick games.
But and we talked about this, or I did throughout the week, which was, you played Atlanta, you played San Francisco. Your defense was fine against those two teams. Now, would you hope and expect them to be more competitive in the game against Dallas and Kansas City? Yeah, sure, you hope that. But really, Tampa, I say the Chargers and that Dallas game is really the only games left where you're going to see a level of offense that is on the next level. Everybody else on the schedule is more Atlanta, San Francisco, Carolina, Vegas, Detroit, New Orleans. Like, you don't have a whole heck of a lot of high-powered offenses left there. So with that, how do we feel about, we talked about this yesterday, Moach. I'm doing who's in and who's out. I can't find the final two NFC playoff teams. I cannot find.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag, isn't it? I mean, it's weird.
You know who I ended up with?
You
know who I ended up with? Minnesota and Carolina.
Oh boy, wow! Is it that bad? I haven't really stopped to think about it. I mean, you got Green Bay in the NFC North.
I got Dallas, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, Arizona, and the Rams as a wild card.
Okay.
And after that, it's Washington, Philadelphia, Chicago, Minnesota, Carolina, New Orleans, Seattle, San Francisco. They're all the teams.
Yeah, see, ordinarily, right, Seattle you would have pegged for one of those spots, but now that they're going to be on Geno Smith for a couple of weeks, that does knock them down a few pegs. And the same thing with San Francisco. I thought they would be a better team, but once again, they're riddled with injuries. They're having to play Trey Lance now. We'll see, because that is a type of team I think that has enough talent to start to figure it out and get better as the season goes on. And part of me, Mike, I'm not trying to be stubborn because I was high on this team going in. I have to think that Washington is going to figure out its defensive issues because they've got talent. I don't know why they're not playing together or rushing the passer.
I agree with you on their defense, but their schedule coming up is absolutely brutal. I mean,
oh, man.
It is absolutely brutal for Washington and New York, by the way. But they've got the Chiefs, the Packers, the Chiefs at the Packers, at the Broncos, Tampa Bay, at the Panthers, Seattle, at the Raiders, Dallas, at Philly, at Dallas, Philly, at the Giants. I mean, they really have a brutal stretch of games that are coming up for Washington.
It does look bad, but their offense has been surprisingly pretty good, even with Taylor Heineke at the quarterback. And like I said, if that defense can just be sort of what it was last year, then you would think they have a much better chance in a lot of those toss-up or difficult games that you just mentioned. You would think.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, you definitely. I mean, so again, so going back to the original conversation, which was, with all the teams I just mentioned, is Philadelphia looking at this like, hey, we're right in this jumbled mess with all these teams? Like, do they feel like they have a little bit of a different outlook all of a sudden?
Yeah, I think, and they will feel that way. And then it's going to come down to how many of your coin flip games, that I like to call them, can you win? Unfortunately, a couple of them are on the road, which is always tough. The Denver game's on the road. The Las Vegas game's on the road. I don't see the Lions as a coin flip game. I think the Eagles should probably be favored, but at the same time, I don't know how they're going to be looking in a week or two, right? Yeah. So, or after the Tampa and Detroit game, Tampa and Vegas games. So who knows? They could have injuries. They could be, and Detroit does play hard. But that's why I say it's unfortunate for the Eagles that game is on the road as well. So you have 3 games that you want to say the Eagles should have a fighting chance to win, but all 3 of them on the road. And we got to be realistic and say they're not going to win all 3 of those road games. And then that makes that home game against the Chargers a little bit difficult.
Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. You guys broke down some source from the tape. I want to get your thoughts on the way the Rieger-Watkins receiving split is working and how it might be evolving, and what are they seeing from Rieger?
This one has been tough to figure out because all the feedback I've gotten is that ever since that rocky kind of first 2 weeks of training camp and how he reported and everything, not ready to go and failing the conditioning test, that he's been better as far as the work ethic and doing what they want him to do. But when he's out there, it's so sporadic when he touches the ball, and there's no consistency to it. They're using him now in special teams, and that always feels like an excuse when you want to use someone on special teams to explain why they're not getting as many offensive snaps. So I think Quez Watkins had more offensive snaps. I don't think we know yet the identity of some of this. Like Quez Watkins, I know people say he should play more, but there are a lot of players in the league who specialize in the shot play, and they're not guys who run all the routes. They are shot play type guys. Michael Gallup is a shot play for Dallas. It's CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper mostly, but when you need that big play downfield and he's healthy, Gallup will give you that. John Brown has been that kind of a guy in the league. And I don't know that Quez Watkins is more than a shot play guy. But I don't know, because this offense does not seem to have that intermediary passing game. It's either screen, short, and go long, and really lacks that area where you would think both Jalen Reagor and Dallas Goddard would really flourish. And again, it's at the play calling, is at the quarterback. There's a whole lot of questions that need to be answered about that.
On defense this week, Darius Slay said, he moved around with DJ Moore. If there's a guy to pick to move around with this week, is it Brown? Is it Evans? Is it Godwin?
No, you're not moving around. You're not doing it. You're playing zone. They're going to play zone. I mean, I'd be stunned if they moved anybody around, because then you're asking for other matchups on the field that you probably want to avoid.
Well, and Fournette's been running the ball pretty well lately too. I mean, and he's a big, powerful back. I mean, so if you're going to run zone, or if you're going two safeties deep like you did against Kansas City, you might be in for an even longer day at the office.
Oh, I think we all know it's going to be a pretty long day at the offense, no matter what defensive posture you choose. It's because it is what it is.
Yeah, no Gronk this week either, by the way. He is out. Levante David is out for Tampa. Obviously he's a big playmaker for them. So this could be a similar type of game to the Kansas City game, Mosh. Can they get that stop? They played well defensively. Can they get a stop or two? And maybe that's the difference in this game, different from the Kansas City game.
Yeah, I mean, look, the key, I say like there's a blueprint for it. But when you see Tom Brady lose, I mentioned this on the podcast, the recipe to beating Tom Brady is not the Eagles' recipe in the Super Bowl. That's very, very unlikely. It's more the Giants' recipe of getting your front four to just pressure him and make him throw the ball quickly and get him off his mark. He's not Aaron Rodgers from a scrambling standpoint. And so to me, the way to make this thing work is just Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, Josh Sweat, Derek Barnett. They have to be your guys. They have to bring it every single snap, and they got to treat this game like it is the Super Bowl, and get after Brady. And if they can do that, I think you give them a puncher's chance, right?
Sure.
If not,
hey, Atlanta had Tampa beaten in the fourth quarter, and then Matt Ryan threw two big picks in that game. Right. And we know what Philadelphia did to Atlanta, so matchups make fights. I don't know that this is a great matchup, though. I do want to ask you, Moshe, real quick. Jannard Avery, Davion Taylor, will they have bigger roles? Are we going to start to see more of those guys?
I think so. I think what Jonathan Gannon learned is he has to play a linebacker up on the line of scrimmage to give them more of a five-man front. You saw some 3-4 looks, because when you play five guys at the line of scrimmage, that forces the offensive line to be single blocking, 5-on-5. And that means they can't put those big double teams on Fletch or Hargrave and drive those guys back and then, get off those double teams into the linebackers. When you're 5-on-5, that allows the linebackers to come right in through the gaps that are available unblocked and be better against the run. You saw them improve against the run there against Carolina, even though there were still some big run plays against them. Davion Taylor, he showed his athleticism. He's not – I don't know that he's a run-stopping linebacker. He's more an athletic guy who can go sideline to sideline and run with a few guys. So his coverage will be tested. But I worry about his inexperience against this kind of offense. This is not an erratic quarterback like Sam Darnold. It's not, like you said, not a bad offensive line. A very disciplined offense can zero in on a guy like that when he's on the field and just take advantage of, losing him in space and him not really having all that veteran moxie to know where to be at the right time all the time.
Jeff Mosher, the Inside the Birds podcast. Of course, you can get it in wherever you listen to your podcast. What's the arrangement for the pregame show with a Thursday night game?
Well, Greg Cosell can't be here for the Thursday night game, so we got an unbelievable replacement for him. Maybe, just as good of a tape breakdown guy. We're having Brian Baldinger on with us. It'll be myself, Adam Kaplan, Baldy, Jason Avant, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock p.m. on the Inside the Birds YouTube channel and other social media platforms.
All right, Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. Football at 4. Mosher, your pick for Eagles Bucks. What do you got?
I have the Bucks winning. I believe I picked 29-16 or something like that.
Wow. All right. The Eagles defense does play better. But the Eagles offense,
29 points, I guess.
Well,
that's
they
better
gave up
for
40 against Kansas City and Dallas. I would put Tampa's offense more in that range than some of the other teams, right?
A little worried about the thumb. If Tom's got the thumb thing going on, so that's good for one fewer touchdown than you might think.
All right, check out the Inside the Birds pregame show tomorrow and the Inside the Birds podcast here. Jeff Mosher on Football at 4. All right, Mosher, thanks, man.
You got it. Take care.
And Football at 4 is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at Wild Wild West, Tropicana, and Harrah's Resort Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Download the app in the Apple Store or Google Play. It's easy to do, and you get it free thanks to First Bank of Seattle. Coming up, it's my NFL Find 5 Ugly 5, 5 best, 5 worst teams in the league. Who are the 5 best, 5 worst NFL teams? Plus, Jeff Kerr on the NFC East. Ian Eagle will call the Eagles and the Bucks for Westwood One Radio. He will join me at 5 o'clock tonight. And a cup of Joe, talking football with Joe Valerio at 5:25 tonight, right here on the Sports Bash. If you missed any of our interviews from earlier today, like Jake Fisher talking Ben Simmons' return, will he play or will he not? Check out the YouTube channel. And also Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. I'm Mike Gill. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. And join me here live on the other side here on the Sports Bash. It's my NFL Find 5 Ugly 5, and it's coming up next.
New Jersey car owners, current vehicle values are at an all-time high, so drive directly to Matt Blatt Nissan because AJ the Trade-In Man needs your trade.
It's on at Matt Blatt Nissan.
Stuck in a loan or lease? Matt Blatt Nissan will get you released. The value of your current vehicle has skyrocketed, so cash in your vehicle now and drive home in a new Nissan today with zero down, 0% APR financing for up to 36 months on all new Nissans in stock. And AJ will give you top dollar for your trade. So cancel that service appointment. Don't replace your tires. Bring it to Matt Blatt Nissan today. You may get more than you think. Drive away with peace of mind because only Matt Blatt Nissan has a 4-day love it or leave it return policy. Worried about your credit? Don't sweat it. We finance your future, not your past. Matt Blatt Nissan.com. Negative equity will be refinanced if a new vehicle. Rate qualifications exist. Not all will qualify. 0% APR financing based on $27.77 per thousand borrowed. Offers can be combined. Call 877-289-6670 or go to mattblattnissan.com for complete details. Offer ends 11/3/2021. It's on at Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township.
the NFL. This hour of the show brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets, take your profit, find out how. PropSwap.com. Download the PropSwap app today. All right, 5 best, 5 worst. Here they are. These are the Fine 5, Ugly 5 after 5 weeks of NFL football. You know, the Fine 5 and Ugly 5. I think the Fine 5 are hard because there's a lot of good teams, not great teams. So I'll get to them, but here's my worst 5. 5 uglies. Here we go. Number 5 this week, a new entry into the list. Do they deserve to be there? How about the Miami Dolphins, number 5 on the list? Their quarterback obviously hurt. Brissett, not good enough. Minus 75. Their defense is atrocious. Feels like a team that just gave up, which is crazy to say. Didn't we think Brian Flores was like the one Belichick coach that was going to get out of this and kind of do his own thing? It looked like Brian Flores was a good coach. And it's turned into a disaster in Miami, so much so that they are now in my ugly 5. Number 5 on the list, the Miami Dolphins tanking for Tua. Probably wasn't a good idea. I told you that. All you had to do was ask me. I would have told you. I would have been very nice about it, too. Number 4 on my list of uglies, it's the Detroit Lions, 0-5. Minus 40. They play hard, though. The coach has a lot of emotion. They do play hard. Like, it sounds ridiculous to say, but that team does play hard. And that's why they're only number 4 at 0-5 in my ugly 5. Number 3, it's the Texans. The Texans continue to just get worse and worse. Although they had a chance to win the game. Davis Mills over 300. They have a big lead. But one of the reasons why you're ugly is you can't hold the lead. They lose the game. They're up 22-9. They can't put away the New England Patriots. They fall to 1-4. The Houston Texans, number 3 in my ugly 5. Number 2, it's the Jets. The Jets continue to stink. Although they went to London and fought hard, they were in that game. You know, they had a chance to win, I guess you could say. I mean, they lost by, 27-20. They were in the game against the Raiders. I don't like the quarterback there. I think they got the wrong quarterback. They had a lot of choices at quarterback. I think they took the wrong guy. That's one of the big problems I have. Jets, number 2 in my ugly 5. Jacksonville stays at number 1. 0-5. They lost, 20 straight games or something like that now? They've been just horrendous. I think I saw something today. What did I see today about Jacksonville that's like mind-boggling? Now I got to find it. Was it that they haven't kicked a field goal all year? Something like that. I got to look that up. But they're the worst team in the league. Jacksonville's got all sorts of problems. Now, Gruden basically was disgraced out of Las Vegas. I think Urban Meyer might be next on the list of people to get fired or leaves or doesn't want to do this anymore. So I'll go Jacksonville, number 1 in my ugly 5. What hasn't Jacksonville done this year?
CBS Sports is where it's from. The Jaguars, the first team in the Super Bowl era to not have made a field goal through the first 5 games of the season.
That's unbelievable. They have not made a field goal.
A single one.
Not one. In 5 games.
The first team to ever do it.
They have 93 points. None of them have come on a field goal.
So since 1968, they're the first team to do that.
Is that a Jeff Kerr stat?
It's just a regular CBS Sports.
Jeff Kerr in 5 minutes. Real quick, here are my Fine 5. You ready? You want
Do
to
it.
play along with me?
Why not? I'm here.
Chargers, number 5.
I like it.
Yeah, last week I had Green Bay here. I like the Chargers more than I like Green Bay.
I would like them better too, actually.
The Rams, number 4.
I think it's about right. I feel like that they shouldn't be top 2, but I think they definitely should be top 5.
Dallas, number 3.
I want to know who your number 2 is because there's a part of me that wants to put Dallas at number 2.
Arizona, number 2.
See, I would put Dallas ahead of them. I think Dallas's defense is better.
Arizona's given up 95 points. Dallas 117.
Yeah, but look at who their opponents are.
I know, but I'm saying I think Arizona's defense isn't as bad as people are making them out to be.
I think that the first game of the year when Dallas played the Bucs is definitely like a blotch.
Arizona plays Dallas this year, correct? They had to. They're playing the East is playing the West. That'll be a good game. Arizona, Dallas. I'm going to go Arizona for now. You know why?
Is it going to Kyler Murray?
Well, they haven't lost yet, and Kyler Murray and Dak Prescott. I mean, both of those guys are highly
regarded.
Yeah, they're both in the MVP race.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go Arizona right now because when push comes to shove, if I need one guy to make a play, Hopkins is my guy.
Okay.
Right? Who you picking out of all the guys on the field between Dallas and Arizona?
DeAndre Hopkins.
Got to.
You could argue he is the most reliable receiver in the NFL today.
If I have to make one play, if that game's back and forth, who's making the play? They both have MVP level quarterbacks right now.
Doesn't matter the quarterback.
Hopkins is the guy.
Hopkins is the receiver.
He's the best offensive player on both those teams. Buffalo's number one.
Has to be. They made a statement on Sunday night.
They've given up 64 points, which is best in the league. So they've given up the least amount of points. They've scored 172, which is also the best in the league. So they're the best in every aspect.
I thought Drew Brees made a great point that this is their next step, like the Bulls. He was saying how the Bulls had to beat the Pistons finally. He says this will be the equivalent of the Bulls being the Pistons, was them winning on Sunday night.
They're my fine five. Buffalo, Arizona, Dallas, Rams, Chargers. Fine five. Who'd I leave out this week? Baltimore.
You should leave them out.
I left out the Packers.
Should leave them out.
They're the ones that left. Oh, Tampa Bay. I left Tampa Bay out.
I feel like that's in part because you're impressed by the other teams.
Well, I like Tampa Bay. Too many injuries right now. That's my fine five, ugly five. It's brought to you by Deborah Heart and Lung Center. When it's your heart, you don't take chances. Be sure to demanddeborah.org. All right, Jeff Kerr on the other side. We'll talk NFC East, some of the top storylines, Eagles, Bucks, and more here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Download it now wherever you get your apps, Apple Store, Google Play. You can message us, DM right through the app. It's easy to do. Just click on the Message Us button. We'll read those off coming up a little bit later. Plus, Iron Eagle at 5 o'clock and a cup of Joe with Joe Valerio. All right, 442 on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Don't forget to get the app if you don't have it right now in the Apple Store or Google Play. I'm Mike Gill, at Mike Gill Show. Follow me on Twitter. If you follow this man on Twitter, you're getting the straight facts, homie. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, always spitting out the facts. At Jeff Kerr, CBS, give him a follow over there. And one of his tweets that has been getting a lot of attention is the amount of yards that one Jalen Hurts has put up in the time that he has started. Jeff, obviously, people looking at this and, mixed reviews on whether or not people are buying in to Jalen Hurts so far. But the guy has put out an amazing amount of numbers, offensive total yards, passing and rushing leaders. Jalen Hurts is right up there with everybody. Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Jalen Hurts. He's in some pretty elite company so far this season.
I actually have to correct myself on that. Derek Carr slightly ahead of Jalen Hurts. So it's like by a couple yards there. When I did the numbers, miscalculated on one, someone corrected me on that. I said, yep, you're right. So he's 6. Okay, so he's on the top 5. But still, the point remains. He's in pretty elite company. And someone pointed out to me, well, they all have losing records or winning records. I'm like, Patrick Mahomes is a winning record this year? Wasn't aware of that. So, again, people are going to have any narrative they want on Jalen Hurts at this point. People are so set on making up their minds, Mike. It's absolutely ridiculous. They don't want to actually look at the facts that's actually presented to them. And Jalen Hurts is not the problem with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's not. And, had a bad game Sunday, but he did what everybody wanted Carson Wentz to do. He brought him back. 4th quarter comeback. Isn't that what you want out of your quarterback? And I just don't understand, Mike. Like, we all know this team isn't good. For anybody who wants Carson Wentz back right now, I like Carson Wentz.
I haven't heard a lot of that. I will say, I will be fair to the fans on that. They haven't been that, at least on this show.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. I like Carson Wentz. The Eagles would have been 0-5 if Carson Wentz is their quarterback this year.
Real quick, Jeff Kerr, at Jeff Kerr CBS, most yards of total offense, first 9 starts, NFL history. Mahomes, Newton, Herbert, Deshaun Watson, Jalen Hurts is 30 yards behind Watson. Top 5 of total offense in NFL history through 9 games. So it's obvious that this guy is putting up yards. He's making stuff happen, right?
Yeah. And here's the thing. Everybody hates yards, but do yards translate to wins? Well, ask Lamar. They do translate to wins if you have the personnel around you. The Ravens clearly did that in Lamar's early years. And look, Lamar Jackson, his second year, he led the league in touchdown passes. Everybody seems to forget that. Led the league in touchdown passes, touchdown percentage. Jalen Hurts isn't going to be Lamar Jackson, but I think he can be a variation of that just because of his ability to extend the play with his legs. And look, this is the way the NFL is going. I mean, Kyler Murray's going to be up there at some point too. I was actually shocked that Kyler Murray was ahead of Jalen Hurts when he did this. So
I would say the same thing. When I read some of the names, I'm saying, where are some of these guys that are missing, especially on that list, total yards of offense in their first 9 starts. No Lamar Jackson on that list. Jalen Hurts more than Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, it's great. Well, it's funny. Lamar Jackson's rookie year, if you remember, Mike, he didn't throw the ball that much. He was pretty much a running back. He basically just brought another dimension to Baltimore's offense. They had that terrible playoff game, and you wanted to wonder, like, will this guy ever be a quarterback? And then that kind of ended the first game of the 2019 season when he threw for 5 touchdowns, and you had that 300-yard passing game and did all that, and we all know the rest of the story. My buy the numbers pieces on Lamar Jackson this week, and just what he's done through 42 career starts is insane. And this is why Eagles fans got to be patient with Jalen Hurts a bit here. The game is trending toward players like Jalen Hurts. You want a quarterback like that. I just don't know if there's any in next year's draft. Like, why would you hit the reset button? I think Jalen Hurts has been fine. We question his arm, but he does a perfect pass to Quez Watkins. We question his decision-making, fine. Lamar Jackson does that. Patrick Mahomes does that. Tom Brady does. They all do that. We can't nitpick every single play. If I did that with every quarterback in the league, I'd still be on game 3, of this week. We just don't have enough time in the day to nitpick every single quarterback in this league. And we just don't. So you have to take the positives of what they're giving you. And Jalen Hurts makes this Eagles offense a top 10 offense. He gives them positive yards. I don't know what more you want from this kid.
Hey, I want to get your take on the running back situation. It was, floated out there that they might have some interest in Marlon Mack, who obviously has connections to Nick Sirianni, had 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns in Indianapolis. If the Eagles made a trade for a running back, does that totally tell you they don't have confidence in the back that they currently have?
I don't think they have confidence in the back they currently have, regardless, because they don't give them the football.
All right, so I'm glad you said that, though, because I write the article and people are all off the unhinged saying they don't run the ball, they don't run the ball anyway. Why would you trade for a running back? If they trade for a back that they're actually going to use, why would any fan have a problem with that?
Yeah, I agree, and that's the thing. If this guy isn't your running back and Miles Sanders, if you don't like him, but you want to use Kenny Gainwell and Marlon Mack if that's in exchange for running the ball, fine. Again, I really think it's what it is with Nick Sirianni. I think he looks at RPOs as run plays, and he has admitted as such. And look, I don't agree with that, but it is what it is. But in actual carries, he just doesn't like Miles Sanders. That's the only explanation I got at this point.
Does he not like him? Does he not trust him? I mean, obviously we saw him go out of bounds. We touched on this the other day. He went out of bounds. So it shows that maybe he's not the smartest, savvy back. But did they just not trust him? Like Peterson didn't use him either. We complained about, so it kind of shows me that Sirianni just doesn't trust him.
Yeah, and it's weird because I feel like Miles Sanders can generate plays if you give him the football, but they're just not doing that. And that's what frustrates me about this, Mike. Like, this guy had all these 70-yard runs last year, and his rookie year, he basically caught everything that was thrown to him. They didn't even try to get him involved in the offense. I think that's what frustrates me more. How can you trust a guy if you don't give him a chance? It's almost like dating. How can you say something about somebody if you don't actually give that person a chance? It's the same way with Miles Sanders. They just don't give him that opportunity to be Miles Sanders. Maybe because
he must have seen something either in film, studying him, practice, that makes him feel like we just can't trust. He has fumbled 6 times in 2 years, and he hasn't fumbled yet this year, but the fumbles, he had some drop issues, maybe, I don't know. But that to me is just a bewildering situation. Now, in this game on Thursday night, let's take a look at it a little closer. Running the ball is not how you beat the Buccaneers.
Not at all. The Buccaneers have number 1 rush defense since 2019, and that was one of the reasons why I was so high on them when Brady got there. I'm like, okay, so their run defense is really, really good, and they have a lot of explosive players. Now they got a quarterback who doesn't turn the football over as much. All of a sudden, a 7-win team looks to be a 10, 11-win team. Well, they ended up winning the Super Bowl. So, and they're still really good at stopping the run. They're still the lead at that. And look, Jason Pierre-Paul's banged up. He hasn't been Jason Pierre-Paul this year, but he's still really good. Shaq Barrett is still one of the best pass rushers in the league. Vinavia and the Ndamukong Suh, they just stop everybody. Levante David's a stud. Devin White's having an off year. He's still really good. Really, how you beat the Bucs is you got to throw the football off them. Unfortunately, that's how you beat this team this week. You got to get into a shootout. You have to.
Mm-hmm. Agree with that. You got to get into a shootout. And more importantly, Jeff, you got to get stops. You didn't get any stops against Kansas City. So is this defense more equipped now? Are they more equipped now to get a stop than they were 2 weeks ago against Dallas, 3 weeks ago against Dallas, 2 weeks ago against Kansas City?
They can be as equipped as they want. I don't know how they're stopping this team. The Eagles play more zone coverage than anybody in the league, and Tom Brady excels against zone defenses. And he's got Mike Evans, he's got Chris Godwin, he's got Antonio Brown. He won't have Gronk this week, but he still has O.J. Howard. He still has Cameron Brate. Tyler Johnson is a good number 4 wide receiver. If they had Gronk this week, I would say, forget it. The Eagles aren't winning this game. And again, I think the Eagles got to generate turnovers. I think that's how you stop them. You don't actually stop them. You generate turnovers. You have to say if they can get 3 interceptions off Tom Brady this week, they have a good chance to win the football game. They really do.
Well, that's interesting to say. They have a really good chance to win the football if they get stopped. All that. You're right. So
you're taking away a potential 21 points off the board too. You got to remember that.
Oh, no question. Okay. So Darius Slay, he went around with DJ Moore. Can you do that against this Tampa team?
Which one do you pick?
Right, exactly.
Do you pick Brown? I just think you got to keep him on his side of the field and play zone coverage. And John DeGan kind of admitted that, look, some weeks we got to play zone. And
well, can't you, even if you're on your side of the field, look, they got 3 good receivers. Can't you man up the guy who's in front of you?
You know what? Scary. I think if I was Jonathan Gannon, I put him
You
on
can man
Anthony.
on one side, Jeff, man with Slay and zone on the other side. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility.
No, honestly, I would just keep slaying on Antonio Brown. I think he's the one that can really beat you this week. And we know Godwin and Evans can, but yeah, Antonio Brown's starting to look like pre-nut job Antonio Brown. And that's a scary thing because that's the best receiver in football, Antonio Brown.
You know, I said that a couple of weeks ago is, look, if this guy's right, you know, we downplay the fact that they added the best receiver in football realistically, right?
I said when they signed him, I'm like, watch, they're going to win the Super Bowl now just because they're going to have Antonio Brown, and he's going to get better as we get. And Antonio Brown's been nothing but a good soldier since he's been there. You haven't heard a peep out of him.
Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. I talked to you know, we did our Fine Five, Ugly Five. We did our who's in and who's out, which teams are going to make the playoffs, which teams are out. In the NFC, I got Dallas, Green Bay, Tampa, Arizona, the Rams. After that, I need two more teams. I need two more. I came up with
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Kind of a half game out of this thing, right?
Well, that's what I said. I need my two. There's 7 wild cards. The two teams I put in are Minnesota and Carolina.
I like the Minnesota pick. I really do, because I feel like they're going to correct whatever they're going to correct. I mean, if they would have lost to Detroit, that would have been awful, but they're a better team than their 2-3 record indicates. They have a solid quarterback in Kirk Cousins. They have Justin Jefferson. They have Adam Thielen. Their defense is better this year. It's just not all coming together right now. And look, they got to beat the Chicago Bears. These are the teams they got to beat, these close teams. And look, I think Minnesota is the makings of a 500 team. I mean, granted, you can't go 500 this year, but 9-8 is good enough to make it. 8-9 may be good enough to make it in the NFC this year. So, yeah, I would go Minnesota. And do you go Carolina? Do you go the Saints? I don't think Washington's going to be in this mix, Mike.
It's Carolina. I got like 30 seconds. It's Carolina. It's Chicago. It is Washington. It's New Orleans, Seattle, San Francisco.
If Geno Smith plays like he did on Thursday night, I think Seattle still gets in.
If he does, you're right. And I have said before, he was not given a good chance in New York or the other New York. He's much better than he showed. I'll tell you that. And he's in a much better position. That being said, Philadelphia is in this thing.
Yeah, if they beat Tampa, they'll really be in this thing.
You're right. Jeff Kerr will back on Friday to recap the Eagles and the Bucs. We'll see you then, Jeff.
Thanks for having me on, Mike. Always appreciate it.
Yeah, man. At Jeff Kerr, CBS. He's back on Friday's show. When we come back, Ian Eagle is here. He's going to call the game for Westwood One Sports on Thursday night. We'll talk to him. All right, Sports Bash final hour, and of course tomorrow night it's the Eagles and the Bucks right here on 97.3 ESPN. Tom Brady's thumb, not a problem. He'll play. Gronk is out. David's out. Winfield out. Eagles will have no Lane Johnson. That's your injury report today here on the Sports Bash. This hour brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. As we take a look at this game a little closer, the NFL Thursday night, Ian Eagle has the call for Westwood One Radio. He's one of the great voices in the league, the NBA, the NFL, you name it. He's a pleasure to listen to, and it's a pleasure to have him on right now here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Ian, how you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, Mike? How you doing?
Everything is good. You get a chance to see Tom Brady in Philadelphia. It should be fun, this Eagles team. I guess if you're doing study and prep work for them, they have no identity. Have you found that out as well?
Yeah, that's a fairly good place to start. I had the game a couple of weeks ago against Kansas City, so I feel like I got a front row view of what they're all about. Watched the tape last week, and you see the makings of something. There are definitely fragments of positivity with this team, but the totality has not convinced anybody yet that they can be a legitimate player in this NFC playoff race. I think Nick Sirianni clearly came in with a plan and with a philosophy, and I do believe he's a very positive guy. I think he has brought that with him to the facility day in and day out, and guys are buying into it, but there just hasn't been enough consistency and sustainability so far in the young season to say, oh yeah, they've got it going in the right direction. Now,
you said you had the chance to see them against Kansas City, and in that game, their defense, gave up a touchdown every single time they were on the field. And John Gannon's defense was much maligned. They gave up 83 points in the 2 weeks against Dallas and Kansas City. Then last week, they stepped up and basically won them that game. So what did you see from the defense as to why they struggled? Because I thought, and it was very interesting that Tony Dungy the other night when Buffalo's playing Kansas City said, oh, they're playing the right defense, cover two, safeties back, which is essentially what the Eagles did. So why didn't it work for the Eagles, but it worked for Buffalo?
Yeah, let me also mention, Mike, that I never had to say the name Aaron Sipos or Tommy Townsend during that game. Literally.
Have you ever called a game with no punts?
Yes. I mean, that's an NFL record-setting day. You tie a record of another NFL game without a punt. Look, I think there were a couple of things going against them that game. Kansas City was certainly angry after their performance from the previous week. They were building up towards something. You saw the big plays, the chunk plays later in the game. So they did establish the run in that game. And then, as we know, Mahomes began to pick Philadelphia apart. Other than the one interception, they were getting pretty much whatever they wanted, and they were getting it on the outside. Tyreek Hill was a complete menace for Philadelphia, and they did control the line of scrimmage, which was a little bit surprising. Philadelphia, I thought, was a much better effort against Carolina defensively up front, and we saw some signs of life from Fletcher Cox, who's been such a high-level performer for so long. He just had not really been making a whole lot of splash plays. Javon Hargrave has been great. Their secondary came through last week. It did not against Kansas City. And I think they're better than their numbers would indicate defensively. I have to believe that. I believe this scheme is better, and I think their players are better. There's a lot of rotation, though. That's the one thing that struck me. They're playing a lot of linebackers. They are rotating in and out, and that's all well and good, but I haven't seen enough standouts where they've got to at some point make a decision on what their personnel is going to be and probably stick with it.
Ian Eagle, Westwood One, he'll call the game Thursday night. You said, Nick Sirianni, what kind of vibe, what kind of, feeling do you get from him? This league is going with these young guys. He really had no track record. There wasn't much on him. So when you get a chance, you got a chance to sit down with him a couple of weeks ago. When you get a chance to sit down, but presumably you maybe already did. What kind of vibe does he kind of come off? As a confident guy, a guy trying to find his way? What do you get from him?
Very likable. You wouldn't walk away from sitting down with him and not feel why he's progressed through this career of ultimately becoming a head coach. He knows his stuff. It's got a little bit of that Sean McVay. He started reeling off moments, and he knew and kind of thought that I had done the game and threw it out there. He's like, yeah, I remember a game, San Francisco against San Diego. It was a Saturday night. Phillip Rivers. I was like, yeah, no, I did that game. He goes, I thought you did. And he just then went chapter and verse, specific plays, exactly what they did, play after play after play in the fourth quarter of that game. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember none of that. I remember making my red eye after the game. That's what I remember. So, you know, I think a lot of these younger guys have been brought up in that culture where you must know your stuff and chapter and verse, and you've got to be able to recite it and recall it. And that's not to say Andy Reid couldn't do the same thing. I'm sure he could, but that generation wasn't flexing it like that. They were moving forward a lot and trying to come up with the next game plan. You know, I think Nick is taking all of his experiences as being the son of a coach. His two brothers are coaches. This is in his blood, and he eats, breathes, and lives it. And at some point, there probably will have to be more of a balance in what he does, and probably deploying some others to do some of the things that he should not be worrying about.
Now, is that something, Ian, you sit down with him and say, hey, man, you know, I called a game for you recently and you ran the ball 3 times. I've never seen that before. Can you extrapolate a little bit more on that?
I do not. I don't tend to give my opinions in those meetings after doing this.
Well, maybe not so much your opinion,
years.
just, hey, I'm calling a game in which you ran the ball 3 times. Like, that's a first for me.
No, that probably wouldn't come up, but you never know. There could be a back and forth down the road.
Well, in a situation, you've now called a game with no punts in it, and the team ran 3 times. Has that ever happened before where you called an NFL game that had 3 rushes?
Was that the game? No, they had more than 3 that game. That was the previous game, wasn't it, where Sanders had it? Yeah, I think Sanders only had the
Gotcha. All right. So it was the Cowboys game. Yeah, yes.
Exactly.
So he followed it up with 9. He followed it up with 9. He went from 3 to 9. All right.
Trust me. If it was 3, I definitely would have remembered that, even amidst all of this information circulating my brain with all the games that I do over the course of the week between NFL and NBA. And this, Mike, is always one of those fun times of the year when I'm just getting into the NBA and I know that I'm going to have a ridiculous amount of information. So I just don't want Tobias Harris catching a touchdown tomorrow in the game I'm doing. That basically becomes my challenge.
Well, if Goddard's out, Tobias might play tight end, so we'll find out. Ian Eagle is with us here now. In that game, it was in Philadelphia against the Chiefs, and now you're back here in Philly. Give me your thoughts on Jalen Hurts and sitting down with, and like, what kind of aura does he kind of portray? Because everybody you talk to is he's an unbelievable leader. That's like the first thing that comes out of everybody's mouth. But how like impressive of a young man is this? Because nobody seems to have an opinion yet whether he's the guy. Can he be the guy? I don't know if he's the guy. What do you get from him?
Really confident. That comes across right away. He emanates that when you meet with him. He looks you in the eye. He locks in on the answers. He's thoughtful on his answers. I can feel that presence that you're alluding to, that guys would follow him, that this has been something that he's been building up to. Also the son of a coach, and gave a lot of credit to his dad for teaching him about the game and being around the game as a young kid. High school football, that's all he knew, being in locker rooms, being on the sideline, visualizing what it was going to be like when he got his chance, and obviously what he did. A classy guy, how he handled himself collegiately in the switch and the transition at Alabama, and then moving on and becoming a star at Oklahoma. And I think you nailed the last part of it too, which is the jury is still out. There are certainly moments where you say, oh boy, he can run this offense. He can handle it. He can navigate his way through it. He can lead. And then there are some moments where you think, I don't know. Is he going to be the guy? Can they put to rest any idea that they have to address the quarterback position down the road? They obviously really liked what they saw last year from him, from how he committed himself to the position, how he connected with his teammates, how the whole vibe around the team changed when he replaced Carson Wentz. But that's got to translate into wins. And it's really interesting just breaking down the numbers. He has thrown for 300 yards now 4 times in his career. The Eagles have not won one of those games. So the success they've had is when he's been a dual threat.
Mm-hmm.
And when the numbers are not eye-popping in the traditional sense, when he's doing a little bit of everything. And if you're the Eagles, you do have to be cognizant of that he's probably at his best, not just as a typical drop-back passer. You've got to design a lot of run-pass options for him and trust his instincts in these moments.
It's amazing, Ian, that in these first 9 games of his career, he is 5th all time in NFL history for total yards in 9 games. 5th. So he's putting up numbers, he's doing things, and it feels like people just can't figure out quite who he is yet. Now, on the other side, we know all about Tom Brady. So if you could, through your illustrious career, give us some sort of insight on getting prepared to cover a game that involves Tom Brady.
He's just so thorough in everything that he does, even in the meetings that we've had through the years in New England and with Tampa Bay last year. He comes fully prepared. You're never going to rattle him. He is always under control in what he's saying, how he's saying it, how he's presenting it. What I did find, obviously, over time, once there's familiarity, he would allow the veneer to go down, and there would be some more real honest and frank moments where he would tell you what he sees and why he sees it and why he did what he did. And that takes time. That doesn't happen in the first go around. I had him one of his first games as a starter in New England when Drew Bledsoe went down. I remember going in there and meeting with him and thinking to myself, man, I don't know if this guy's going to be any good, but boy, he's ridiculously affable. And I think there's something there. There was just a charm that he had, and obviously it translated to the umpteenth degree as one of the greatest leaders that we've seen in football history. He holds everybody accountable, and he has a very high standard. He expects everybody else to maintain that standard as well. And I think because of that, guys on his team don't want to let him down. And that's been the case from iteration to iteration. Every team that he has played on, not saying the Patriots and the Buccaneers, I'm saying every version of the team, no matter what the players are around him, they want to do well for him. That says a lot about him as an individual.
Yeah, and that team is interesting because obviously you're seeing a guy at 40 years old still playing. Like when you see him and walk in, you feel a guy who's not at the end of the road, even though at some point he's got to be at the end of the road, right? I mean,
Mike, it's insane. It truly, when you really think about it.
Like if you're talking to like Peyton Manning at the end, Ian, you're like, okay, I kind of see like this is almost done for him. You don't feel that for Brady?
No. And again, just my own personal experiences. The first game I did for CBS, first NFL game, was Peyton Manning's first game as a pro. Indianapolis against Miami, his rookie year, week 1. He walks into the meeting room. He knows my name. He looks you in the eye when he answers it. It's the first interview that I did as a CBS broadcast with an NFL player. And he walked out, and I was like, man, that guy was really impressive. I guess, wow, we're at a different level now. And I realized quickly that, oh, no. I'm not at a different level. It's just that guy's at a different level, the presence that he had. But at the end of it, yes, you could feel it. You knew it was the end of the road. You don't feel that with Tom Brady. And you know what's really crazy when I think about it? This probably happened 5 years ago. I was doing a Patriots game with Dan Fouts, legend, one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history, tremendous guy. And he and Tom had a really nice bond. Tom grew up in the Bay Area. Dan was doing local sports after he retired in the San Francisco area, had a tape of a walk and talk with Tom Brady as a high school senior, the two of them doing an interview and a sit down, and brought it one day and played it for Tom, and Tom was blown away. So I don't know, Dan just asked him kind of offhandedly, like, hey, man, how long do you want to do this already? You've accomplished everything. This is before he had gone public with his intentions. And Tom said, yeah, I'd like to play till I'm, 45, 46. And we laughed, like literally laughed out loud. Dan starts laughing. I'm laughing. I'm kind of reading the room, and Tom was not laughing. And he looked at us. He's like, no, I'm serious. And then we quickly realized, oh, he is serious. And by the way, he's doing it.
Yes.
So it teaches us a lesson.
Well,
don't laugh at Tom Brady if he's not joking.
No, and it's a tremendous thought of, I can't picture a league without him. Even though it's coming, you just don't know when. Like, is he playing at 49? Is he playing at 52? And like you said, you can't even joke and ask him because he's just going to give you some cerebral answer. Although, do you feel in Tampa he has let the guard down a little bit?
Oh, most definitely. What I'm seeing now is what I saw in those production meetings towards the end of his tenure in New England. The last 3 years in particular, I would say, he let his guard down, at least with us, in those meetings where we got to see the real version of him. And now he's showing that more and more in interviews that I've seen, in press conferences, and commercials. And I think that was part of the issue maybe in New England of the way they went about their business. And when he would push the envelope a bit, boundaries, and maybe it was frowned upon, even though he was Tom Brady. That might have been, along with some other issues, why he decided to move on in his career and try something new. And by the way, he had the right to do it. And clearly he was in the right because he led him to a Super Bowl title and he still got the it factor. Happy that New England found their quarterback and they feel good about that. That might end up working out for them. But what Tom Brady did was still the right move for him. And I don't think it should affect anything in terms of the relationship with the fans that he had in New England and the media and all of the Patriots supporters. To me, he did everything right for a long time there.
Iron Eagle, Westwood 1, Thursday Night Football. Do you have a favorite encounter, a favorite Brady story that you tell often when you get asked about him? I feel like he's such a unbelievable sports figure, but the fact that we're living in the moment, it's hard for us to realize it. I think we'll realize it even more when he's done. But is there that one go-to Brady encounter for you?
Yeah, I told one fairly recently on a podcast that got a little bit of attention, and I had no intention of telling it. It just popped up late in the podcast. I have no problem sharing it again, only because it was comical and it was real. So as I explained, when I'm doing NBA and NFL and the two seasons now conflict, I'm really pushing it over the course of the week. Sometimes there could be 4 NBA games and there could be a Thursday night NFL game and a Sunday NFL game on CBS. And I had one of those particularly crazy weeks. And I had a net game on a Friday night. It went to overtime. I got home late. I had an early flight to Boston to make our production meeting in Foxborough. And I get there at about 8:50, and Tom Brady's going to meet with us at 9 a.m. And I had nothing to eat. I hadn't had dinner the night before. I get there. I'm beat up. I look like crap. I hadn't shaved, obviously. And I just need something. And the Patriots brought in donuts for us, Dunkin' Donuts. And I like a good donut, don't get me wrong. But I went to town on this donut. And I don't drink coffee. So I've never had a sip of coffee in my life.
Wow.
And I'm looking for something to drink. So I go into the little media area by our room, and there was a large bottle of Pepsi. So I grab the bottle of Pepsi. I take a swig of that. I've now chewed up half of the donut as Brady walks in the door. And I have icing on my face. I look like a mess. And he says, rough morning, Ian? You doing all right? I'm like, yeah. So there's a huge Pepsi, half a donut. He's like, what's going on here exactly? I was like, oh, and I try to start explaining, no, this is not my normal breakfast. And he just crushes me. He's like, really? Are you making good choices in life? And this was not part of the TB12 method. Let's just leave it at that.
Tremendous. Iron Eagle, Thursday Night Football, Westwood 1. They'll have the call. Ross Tucker, I believe, is your partner for Thursday night.
RT.
I will ask, since you are the lead voice now for the NBA, Are you like looking forward to a Sixer game and getting this Ben Simmons like thing put into your lap here?
I have a Sixer game early. I have a game next Friday.
Yeah, you got the Knicks,
Sixers.
right?
No, Nets and Sixers.
Oh, Nets, Friday night the 22nd.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. It's on yes because you're doing the Nets. I'm looking at your TNT stuff here. All right, that's right. You're doing the Nets games. So that game is very interesting. You got Ben Simmons going on. He might be there. He might not be there. You got the Kyrie stuff. I mean, you got a lot on your plate there.
Yeah, the goal in the NBA, as you know, and this is true in any sport, the goal is to not lead the league in drama. And you've got the Nets and the Sixers right now, neck and neck in that category. So at some point, this will come to a head with Philadelphia. And clearly, Ben Simmons has made it known through his people that he doesn't want to be there, but he also wants to get paid. And the only way to get paid is to be present and to be there and to report, which he has done. But it just sounds like the lines of communication have completely broken down. The Kyrie situation, they had to come out and take a stand, the Nets did, in order to move on and take the next step. There was no way you could allow it to linger every day and be a question for your head coach, for your players. And now the ball is in Kyrie's court. He's going to have to make a decision in regards to his vaccination status. And if his decision is to not get vaccinated, then he will not play for the Nets this season. It's pretty simple.
Were you at the game Monday?
No.
All right. Because I was going to say, I think Simmons might have been texting you to let him in the building.
Side door,
right?
In between plays, I could have opened it up for him. I know. It's a pretty wild situation.
The great Ian Eagle, he'll call the game for Westwood One Radio. And, of course, the Eagles and Bucks right here on 97.3 ESPN. Ian, we appreciate you jumping on board. Always fun, man.
All right, Mike. We'll do it again down the road, bud.
Hopefully we can. And, of course, he appeared here on the Sports Bash this hour, brought to you by EMT Solar Roofing and Solar Guardian. Start your solar journey today by learning more. Visit espnsolar.com. The great Ian Eagle. Now, that is more of just like getting – like I could talk to Ian Eagle all day. You know, I could just – he's the kind of guy, he does the NBA, college basketball, the NCAA, everything. I mean, he just does it all. We could just go bouncing all over the place. You don't have enough time when Ian Eagle's on, right? But when we come back, Cup of Joe Valerio. Now, you talk about storytellers. Now, the story he tells about Brady with Dan Fouts, and he just, deadpans him. Like, no, I'm serious. I want to play till I'm 46. And Fouts and Brady are just Fouts and Eagle are just bagging up laughing. And Brady's like, I don't find anything funny here. Tremendous storytelling. But Joe Valerio is going to join us next. Number one, we got a lot to discuss about this game. Number two, what he saw from the Eagles that was encouraging on Sunday, and what he saw from the Eagles that was ugly. That's coming up next here with Joe Valerio, Sports Bash Live. We're talking football with Joe coming up next here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, 5:30 on the dot as we get you ready for the Eagles and Bucs and talk a little NFL, more conversation. Joe Valerio, former Kansas City Chief. Going to talk a little football with him right now here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN as Joe is back for another week to talk a little football. Just two guys talking football. Now, you just missed Ian Eagle was on. He was excellent, told us some great stories about Tom Brady and just, this guy. Now, Joe, you obviously play for the Chiefs. You get a chance to kind of talk a lot about Patrick Mahomes. Tom Brady, though, at 46 years old, playing at the level that he's still playing at. Is that amazing to you? Is that like something that you just are like, as a guy who played in the league, you played with Joe Montana, to see Brady still playing at the level he's playing at, how amazing is that?
Oh, Mike, it's, great to be back, number one. Mike, can you hear me okay?
You're chopping a little bit there. You're kind of going in and out. Oh, we lost you there. We just completely lost you. We'll bring Joe back in here. It looks like he had a little bit of a connection issue in the video stream. We'll try to get him back connected here on the Sports Bash Live. Now, Joe played with Joe Montana. He told the amazing story last week about when he caught the touchdown pass. Joe was an offensive lineman who caught 4 touchdowns in his career. So you look at a situation where he played with arguably the best quarterback of all time. He played for the Chiefs, so he covers the Chiefs a lot. He does the Believe in Chiefs podcast. He sees this young guy, Mahomes, playing at the level. But he's also a guy who watches football all over the place. And you see what Tom Brady's doing. And I start with that based on, the conversation we just had with Ian Eagle, which basically you take a look at the fact that Tom Brady is 46 years old and playing at this level. It's just fascinating. And I would love to kind of dig a little deeper into the amazement from other players who played in the league. Now, Joe's been out of the league. So this is, to me, is like when you see Tom Brady playing at this level, how do you comprehend that and put that into words as a guy who played in the league? We'll try to get Joe on the phone and, break that down here in a second. We'll talk to Joe Valerio in just a second here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. One thing that is just like, and we got Joe, I think, on the line here, so we'll pop him up on the phone. Sorry for the people who are watching the video stream. The one thing that is fascinating about the whole situation with Brady is that it doesn't seem like there's an end in sight. All right, I think we got Joe on the phone. Let's bring him in now. And, we were just talking about Brady. Ian Eagle was just on with us telling us stories. He said, I'm doing the game with Dan Fouts, and, we talked to Brady, and we asked him, how long do you want to play? And he said, 46, 47, and we're laughing. And he said, Brady's as serious as can be. He's serious. Well, now he's doing it. So as a guy who played in the league, you played with Joe Montana, you saw a guy, towards the end of his career. How amazed are you that Brady is still playing? And here's the question, Joe. You don't see the end in sight the way he's playing.
I got Mike. Great to be back. Apologize for the technical difficulties, but oh my God, Tom Brady, right? I mean, Joe Montana, when I was playing with him, he was in his 30s and he seemed old. Like, I mean, it's unbelievable. And he was a youthful guy. Like, it's not being critical of Joe. It's like, how is Tom Brady doing this at his age? I think about when I was that age, and who's the oldest lineman to play? I guess Jackie Slater probably is one of them. Played till he was 40. But oh my God, I don't know how he does it, and it's got to be some kind of regimen that he has going on, or he's just a genetic freak of nature that he can keep going like this. Because it isn't like he's not a physical player or has taken hits.
Joe,
I'm amazed by it.
It is amazing because, that's the question is, if not, like, okay, he's 46. Does he come back and play again next year at this level? Does he come back? Like Peyton Manning, you saw, like, he was at the end. Like, that was it. Now, he had a lot of injury issues. Brady hasn't gone through the injuries, but at some point, Father Time gets you. I'm just interested when. So I want to get your take on the Eagles win a game that was an ugly game. They didn't lead until the final, 2 minutes of the game. But what is something, if you're watching that game as a former player, that was a positive for them that they can build off of and hopefully, use that to get some win. I don't know if they win this game on Thursday night, but something that was a positive that you liked what you saw from them.
Defense, Mike, defense, because
which
right
is
now,
odd, Joe, because the game against Kansas City and Dallas, defense would be the issue, right?
Right, exactly. But I mean, you got to give it to the defense for that's going to be their ticket, right? I mean, look, I love what Jalen Hurts is doing. He's learning the game. He's getting it done with his legs. You know, I know you want to talk about some of the ugly things, you know, some of the drop balls. Like, you can't, if you're going to elevate, right, and you're going to compete, you can't, the little things, you can't miss the little things, right? You can't miss the drop balls. You can't have penalties. You can't do that. You can't get down to close to the end zone and not score. And I'm telling you, I'm excited about the defense right now because I'm watching, like, you know, I'm covering the Chiefs, obviously. I'm close to them. And I'm watching how things are just like unraveling there, and it's falling on the defense, right? So, hey, let's have a little lesson from that, Eagles fans. Let's build on this defense thing and see what the offense can do to get by. Because right now, it's the defenses seem to be winning games for a lot of teams in the NFL. So, listen, what do Eagles fans want? What do they really want out of the season? Look, we're not sure the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl, right? We kind of see that. This will be a big test. But what do they really want? What do Eagles fans want out of this year? And if they want to watch a team rebuild, I would love to see them rebuild this team on defense first, and then let the offense start to take care of itself as they put in some of the key pieces. Because I think that's going to be the fastest route back to win in the NFC East.
Well, oddly, in the game against Kansas City, they scored 30 points. They moved the ball. They were able to do stuff. Last week, the offense was terrible. So what were some of the issues they had offensively last week that maybe can be remedied?
Well, I mean, dropping balls, right? I mean, you get out with the jugs machine, you know, spend some extra time with Jalen taking passes. I mean, you know, catch the ball, you know, I mean, I thought for the makeshift line that they had, I thought they did a pretty good job of protecting Jalen. I mean, I was really pleasantly surprised with how their pass protection looked against Carolina. So you give Jalen a little time, and he can do it with his legs. He can make an accurate pass. You got to catch it though, and I think that's something that they could, you know, that's a proactive thing they can work on. You know, work on catching the ball and learning Jalen's timing, you know, get the routes down and, you know, build on that. So, you know, I was really surprised, pleasantly surprised at how well they protected, what the offensive line was able to do.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go back to the defense. And I think if they're going to rebuild, it's going to have to be, you know, what they're doing on defense. And I know, look, they scored against the Chiefs. The Eagles put up some points. Oh man, that Chiefs defense is hurting right now. I mean, they're 31st in the league. You know, they're not playing well. Actually, I believe. Wait a minute. I think Washington's 31st. I think the Chiefs are 32nd. So, you know, they're, you know, that might not have been the best barometer for this Eagles offense. And I don't even know if the Buccaneers are going to be the best barometer because they're missing some guys, right? And Pierre Paul is hurt. They're missing two starters.
Levante Davis out too.
Yeah, so this is you know, this might not even be the biggest test for this offense, but I think the Eagles I think they got a shot in this game. It's at home. It's Thursday night. They got a little bit of momentum coming off of this win. Bucs are a little banged up. I think the Eagles have more to lose by losing this game than the Bucs have to win by winning this game, and I think that gives the Eagles a little bit of an advantage to pull off the upset on Thursday night.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that consistently has been an issue, I think, is the penalties. It's been a big problem, Joe. I don't know if you've ever been on a team that was an undisciplined team or labeled undisciplined or had penalty issues, but, you know, how does a team go about? We always hear an undisciplined team, that means the coach gets a lot of blame. Is that fair? Should you look at the coach when your team, I think the Eagles have 45 penalties or something like that. The next team is in the 30s. So they are easily the most penalized team in the league. Who gets blamed for that? How do you fix that?
Yeah, it's an accountability issue, right? It's an accountability issue. And you can't, as a coach, you know, I know Nick is you know, he's a young coach. He's coming into this team new. But he's got to put some accountability drivers into this thing, and he's got to let players know that if they want to be a part of this team, it's like the John Wooden model, right? It's you got to start with those little things. How you tie your shoes, right? How you put your uniform on. Like those are the things John Wooden taught when he had all those great UCLA basketball teams. And that's the kind of stuff that I had with Marty Schottenheimer. He started with the little things. He started with the rules of the road, the rules of engagement, and what it was going to take to be a part of the football team. And if you wanted to be an active part, you had to do the little things right. And you can't suffer from giving into the talent and saying, well, that's my best player and I'm going to have to play him. If they make mistakes and they make the little mistakes, you've got to discipline them. You've got a positive reinforcement. You've got to have negative reinforcement when the players are struggling to be disciplined, and you can't tolerate it. And Nick Sirianni's going to have to make some tough decisions about who he plays if those players aren't showing the discipline that they want to be a part of this organization, jumping off sides when you shouldn't jump off sides, right? Getting, penalties, a late hit, and things that are, that you really can avoid, look, nobody wants to penalize somebody for a penalty of being over aggressive or, playing your heart out. But like when players are making silly mistakes, I saw Marty do it. I saw Marty Schottenheimer do it. And it turned our team around, at times when he showed you that there needed to be an accountability factor to not getting the little things right. And I think that's what they're going to have to do and know that they're rebuilding. And if you want to be a part of this, then get it done.
What's interesting is, in a lot of these games, these penalties have mattered. Like they've had touchdowns taken off the board. They've extended other teams' drive. And you wonder, are you watching a team that is close? Like they got a lot of young players. There's not a lot of expectations here, but are you watching a team that is kind of close to, if they clean up the penalties, are they more disciplined? If that's the case, are they close to being a good football team?
Sure they are, Mike. Sure they are, because I'm watching the Chiefs, right? Not to keep harping on that, but it's a good analogy because the Chiefs they're the reverse. People still think they're a really good team because they've got all that talent, but look what not doing the little things is doing to them, right? The Chiefs could very, very easily be, they could not have
right
because of some of the things that the lucky catch here, the other team giving up something here, like the Browns. I think about the Browns game, and like the Eagles are like the reverse of that. Like they could actually have more wins if they were able to stop those things. Where I think the Chiefs, if they didn't have a few lucky bounces, or the teams that they played against didn't do a few silly things, they could easily not have a win on their schedule, even with all that talent. So really, what's that telling you? It comes down to the little things, right? These are all NFL players. These are all players who made the grade, and it's about the chemistry, right? You look at the Tom Brady Patriots teams. I bet you there's a lot of Eagles fans out there that probably couldn't remember 5 of the players from those Super Bowl era teams, right? Think about it, Mike. Tom Brady, everybody knows Tom. Gronk, with when he came on the scene, right? Teddy Brucci, because he's still doing the sportscasting stuff. Okay, Danny Amendola. Okay, wait. Who? Like who else?
Right.
So it's not about the stars. This team can do it. They're all NFL players. It's about the chemistry and putting the right pieces out on the field and playing chess. To me, that's the successful. It's not all about talent. The Buccaneers were a perfect example of that last year.
Joe Valerio's with us on that front. When you're going into a game where you are deemed to be the underdog and a clear underdog, is that week different? Like when you're getting prepared for a game where there's a pretty good understanding that you are not perceived to be the favorite, is there a different vibe, a different energy that week in practice?
Yeah, definitely. It's bulletin board fodder, right? It's the stuff that motivates. And look, players need that motivation, right? I mean, let's be honest. The players, the money today that some of the players are pulling in. I mean, that's not really the motivation, right? It really comes down to, how your peers perceive you, how you're seen amongst your friends throughout the league, how you want to go out and perform and perform for your city and for the people that are backing you, and those diehard Eagles fans that are showing up at the link every week, the ones that are tuning in every week. I mean, that's what players are playing for, and they don't want to be the underdog. There's two sides of sort of betting lines, right? There's the underdog where, you have that extra motivation. And then there is just, to be counter to that, there is the flip side of the confidence that comes along with being a favorite. When you are the favorite, you play with an air of confidence, right?
Yeah.
And it does give you that swagger that if you go out and prepare, and like Coach Schottenheimer used to tell us in KC all the time, you can't just throw your helmet out there and win, even though you might be better on paper. As long as you're preparing, there is a nice confidence that comes along with being the favorite. So you just don't want to be stuck in between. Right?
Which is the whole league, Joe, right? The whole league is stuck in between, it feels like.
It really does. It really does. It feels like that. It feels like any given Sunday, anybody can beat anyone. And it's coming down to, a lot of it's coming down to, I feel like NFL coaches today are like, it's like they're playing Nintendo or PlayStation or, Xbox, like with these guys. And it's like whoever has the better game plan, whoever can put the right piece of the puzzle or control the right player at the right time, you're going to be successful. The players are so talented, and they're all so good. And there's so much parity that, I think unless, what does that tell me? It tells me it comes down to coaching.
Yeah.
It comes down to what the coaches can do.
That's a great point. Now, just real quick, Joe, do you have a upset that you remember vividly, a game that no one gave you guys a shot in, you prepared and that preparation played out on the field and won? Is there that like signature upset for you?
Let me tell you, Mike, about a game that I will never forget as long as I live. It was 1993. It was Joe Montana's first season in KC, and it was magical. It was magical having him and Marcus Allen there, and they elevated us, right? They elevated the Chiefs to the next level. We had we have a great season. We go to playoffs. Now, we didn't win the division, so we didn't get a bye. So we played the first week in that divisional championship game, and we beat the Steelers in overtime. And Bill Cowher comes into his old house. He was Marty's protege. He comes in, and we beat the Steelers in overtime on a Nick Lowry field goal. And then we're going to the House of Pain, and we're going down to Houston, right, which was Houston's last season in Houston,
yep.
Right, the Oilers' last season there. So, I mean, they were on an 11-game winning streak. Buddy Ryan is the D coordinator. Kelvin Gilbride is there. And it was the year, they punched each other on the sideline. If you remember that, right? Like a lot of emotion. And that team was good with a capital G, capital OOD. I mean, they were good. And, it's Buddy's vaunted, 46 defense. And we were double-digit underdogs on the road playoff game, in the House of Pain. And Joe Montana literally picked them apart. I mean, my favorite memory was Keith Cash, our tight end, scores a touchdown, and he sees Buddy Ryan's big face on this huge poster in the end zone, and he was about to spike the football, and then he took the football and threw it at Buddy's face. I'm telling you, it was classic. And
that was a game, though,
Buddy.
you guys were down, and you scored like 3 touchdowns in the fourth to win that game, right?
It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. We came home to KC. It had to be 2:00 in the morning, maybe 3:00 in the morning by the time our plane landed, and we get off the plane and we come through the jetway. There were 20,000 fans at tiny little KCI airport, right, in Kansas City. And it was something I'll never forget. I'll never forget the confidence that Joe Montana had in the huddle during those long and sustained drives. Marcus Allen basically looking at the guys and saying, "Guys, I've been here before. We've all been here before. We're going to win this game." And that level of confidence, you go into something like that. It was amazing. It was amazing. It was literally one of my favorite, one of my favorite moments that I was ever a part of, and getting to participate in that game.
And for a while, that was the Chiefs' they didn't win a playoff game until 2015. before that one right there. Joe Valerio is always back with us. He'll talk a little football with us next week. Eagles and Bucks on Thursday night. You can hear the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, Joe will join us each and every Wednesday. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Mike. Have a great one. Good luck to all those Eagles fans tomorrow.
Yeah, that should be a fun one tomorrow night. And we'll see. Joe says, hey, the preparation, getting ready for the game. We'll wrap it up coming up next here on the Sports Bash. All right, thanks to Joe Valerio and the crew today. Iron Eagle, if you missed it, check it out on our YouTube channel. You can always go back and watch the full show on our YouTube channel as well. Tomorrow we're live at Chickies and Pete's in Atlantic City. If you want to stop on out and have a little lunch, Thursday Night Football, watch the Eagles and the Buccaneers. Come on out early. Get yourself ready for Eagles and Bucks. Jeff Nadeau, the Fantasy Fix with Sky Guasco. Anthony Becht, former Tampa Bay Buccaneer tight end, will join me. Our NFL schedule first look with Todd Rank. Rob Motti is on the show tomorrow as well. We are jam-packed and busy tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Coming up, it's Dave Weinberg for a Weinberg Wednesday at 6:20 on Game Night with Josh. Eagles tomorrow. Friday night, we've got Flyers and Canucks here on 97.3. Have a great night, everybody.